Chapter 185. It was June 10th on Friday in the 7th week of the semester. The old man got up very early in the morning and started making the dish he was familiar with, soup dumplings. Soup dumplings had been the old man's specialty before he had become a star chef back then. He had once dominated a breakfast street with soup dumplings, and had even been given the title of King of Dumplings. A basket of excellent soup dumplings usually had the following three characteristics: thin skin, big fillings, and juicy. Old Man Wong's soup dumplings had a fourth characteristic, and that was that they could easily remind people of their mother's taste. One bite and they couldn't help crying, completely like a tear gas. So when he saw the soup dumplings the old man had specially made this morning, Father Wong very consciously prepared 2 full bundles of napkins on the table to make ample preparations. Of course, not everyone would cry when they ate the old man's soup dumplings. Wong Ling wouldn't cry. After all, crying was too bad an image, and it wasn't good for the aloof image he had created in the past. Thus, when he ate the soup dumplings, he used spirit energy to seal his acupuncture points and plug up his tear ducts. At breakfast time, the old man and Father Wong were in the habit of watching the news. Father Wong turned on the TV, which happened to be broadcasting the morning news. A female anchor said with a solemn expression, "Urgent news. As of 6:38 a.m. today, 32 rice dumpling delivery riders have already gone missing. This mass disappearance has a very bad impact and has caused great panic in the delivery circle. The cultivation police held a conference overnight and suspect that this mass disappearance of delivery riders has a major connection with the master of Shadow Stream Jiang Luiyue, who has yet to be apprehended. Currently, the matter is under further investigation." When the old man saw the news, he immediately sighed. The world is still so dangerous nowadays. You can lose your life delivering takeout. Dad, do you think this has something to do with the master of Shadow Stream? Didn't the police say they suspected it? There's no solid evidence. Father Wong took a bite of the soup dumpling and wiped his tears. I'm just saying that casually. But if this was back in the day, if the suspect had ordered my Xilong Bao, the case might have been solved. The old man glanced at the soup dumplings on the table and let out a sigh. I've been busy growing vegetables since I retired. My culinary skills are no longer as good as they were in my heyday. The soup dumplings I used to make would have a teary effect just from the smell of the soup dumplings I made. Father Wong and Wong Ling, old master, back then, my soup dumplings were like a tear gas. In the past, I was even used by the police to deliberately send them to criminals as takeout. When the prisoners smelled my soup dumplings, they almost cried themselves blind. The police took advantage of the situation and arrested him. Father Wong and Wong Ling, after the Shadow Stream incident, the mass disappearance of the rice ball delivery staff was probably the second major incident in recent times. Wong Ling felt that the police's suspicions weren't unreasonable. From a criminal investigation point of view, it was indeed very easy to link the two incidents together. Furthermore, Wong Ling knew that this master of Shadow Stream was currently injured. Wong Ling had blown up that spiritual clay clone in one go, causing the other party to directly lose 600 years of cultivation. The other party's real body would definitely have suffered a backlash and been injured. For one thing, it would definitely affect his seclusion, and for another, he would have to spend some time taking care of his injuries. During this period, it was very important to make sure he was well nourished. While a true cultivator should be able to give up his desire for good food and rely on the spirit energy of heaven and earth to make up for the nutrients his body needed, when he was injured, he still had to eat. This was the best way for his body to recover as quickly as possible. So in summary, Wong Ling felt that this wasn't a simple matter, and in his heart, he very much agreed with the police. He felt that this matter most likely had something to do with the master of Shadow Stream. Although the Shadow Stream incident had come to an end, the last tail had still managed to escape. This was an unstable element which made Wong Ling very uncomfortable. In the eyes of the outside world, Shadow Stream already had no chance of making a comeback after this incident, but Wong Ling felt that as long as the master of Shadow Stream wasn't arrested, this matter would never end. As it turned out, Wong Ling wasn't the only one who thought this way. Great minds think alike. Opening the chat group, Wong Ling found that there were a lot of people discussing this matter. Everyone knew that the master of Shadow Stream was still missing from the complete defeat of this terrorist organization. Anyone in the cultivation circle who had the slightest bit of a sense of justice was also asking around for information on the master of Shadow Stream. Speaking of good people with a sense of justice, of course the people in grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's cultivation group couldn't be excluded. When Wang Ling went online, Ciliangenren happened to be discussing this matter with several other people in the group. Ciliangenren, there's something fishy about this, what do you think? Buelang Blade Immortal sent an emoji pushing up glasses. I have a friend at the police station who said that the delivery riders disappeared in the same place. Ciliangenren, can you pinpoint the specific coordinates? Buelang Blade Immortal, yes. So far, we've found that the delivery was in a convenience store in the basement of a high-end apartment. However, that convenience store has been abandoned for a long time, and no one in the neighborhood knows that someone lives there. The surveillance footage in the basement has been destroyed, and the police have yet to prove that the convenience store has anything to do with the disappearance of the delivery riders. That's easy, we can provide evidence. Ciliangenren nodded and quickly replied, I remember that Immortal Toya once developed a kind of soul-condensing incense, which can condense vengeful spirits within a radius of 10 kilometers for half an hour after being lit. If these delivery riders died in vain, then these vengeful spirits will be evidence. But Immortal Toya didn't reply immediately after Ciliangenren finished speaking. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal went to check it out himself. Brother 2? Are you there? Very quickly, Immortal Toya sent a sweating emoji. I'm refining elixirs. I still have a lot of soul-condensing incense. If you need help, I can rush over from Chrysanthemum Island at any time. I'm more familiar with how to use soul-condensing incense, and I can control the range of the soul-condensing incense. If it's given to someone else, they'll attract those malicious ghosts, and that'll ruin the whole thing. Very well, then Brother 2 will be in charge of guiding the souls. But even if we can gather evidence, we still have to catch the culprits and solve the problem from a legal point of view. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal nodded and said, I'm busy today, so someone needs to step forward now. It would be best if they could disguise themselves as a delivery rider and go to that convenience store to seduce them. A moment later, Ciliangenren was the first to step forward. How about I go? Immortal Toya, is your period over? Ciliangenren, not yet, it's just a little pain. It doesn't matter. Lightning Dharmaraja, then how about I go? Ciliangenren, if Dharmaraja goes, he'll face a problem. He definitely won't be able to control the power of thunder and lightning, and the delivery rider will be electrocuted. If you're putting on an act, you have to go all the way, it'll be too fake. Lightning Dharmaraja, at that moment, the group fell into a brief silence. A few minutes later, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal spoke again. How about this, I'll pick someone. After saying that, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal straightaway sent a message to Wang Ling, Brother Ling, are you there? Seeing the message, Wang Ling was silent for a moment before he replied with an ellipsis. In front of the screen, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal smiled proudly. Humph. I knew it. Brother Ling, you were spying. Chapter 186. It could only be said that Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was in the end Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. As one of Wang Ling's few good friends in the cultivation circle, he had seen through Wang Ling's spying with one glance. Of course, apart from Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, the people in the chat group could also be considered Wang Ling's immortal friends in the cultivation circle, but there weren't many of them who had actually seen him. When Wang Ling was 10, Ciliangenren had been lucky enough to meet him once, but she had no idea that the Linggenren in the group was the little boy she had met back then. Wang Ling thought about it carefully, and finally decided to agree. He felt that there was something fishy about this matter. The scene he had seen with his heavenly eye had made him feel a little uneasy. Logically speaking, this master of Shadow Stream, whose cultivation had regressed by 600 years, was already in a state of being like a clay bodhisattva crossing a river. If the disappearance of those delivery boys was really related to her, it was hard to say what else was involved. It was June 11th on Saturday in the 7th week of the semester. Wang Ling and Immortal Toya had arranged to meet in a park not far from the high-end apartment. When Wang Ling arrived, he saw a slender, handsome man with gray hair and a traditional style standing on a park bench from a distance, carrying a large gourd on his back. The big gourd on this guy's back was too eye-catching, and several girls who happened to pass by the park couldn't help stopping in their tracks. "Hello, can I take a picture with you?" Before Wang Ling could get close, he saw a girl muster up the courage to ask. Immortal Toya stared at the girl in front of him in silence for 3 seconds, then nodded. The girl was wild with joy at receiving permission. She made a peace sign and took several selfies with Immortal Toya in a row. The girls next to her all had envious expressions on their faces. The girl carefully scrolled through the photos on her phone, her face red. The more she looked at this person, the more handsome he was. If she posted these photos on WeChat Moments, her little sisters would definitely be envious for a long time. After taking the photo, Immortal Toya happened to see a young man walking over from afar. He was wearing a white shirt and had one hand in his trouser pocket. He immediately took out the photos grenade-throwing senior Immortal had given him and carefully compared them. Black hair, dead fish eyes, and a naturally paralyzed face. This was definitely Ling Jinren. The other girls also wanted to join in the fun and take photos, but in the end, they saw Immortal Toya suddenly move and walk straight toward a young man who was approaching them. All the girls were stunned. What the F***ck? What was wrong with the park today? She suddenly met 2 handsome guys early in the morning. A few girls saw from afar that the 2 of them seemed to have said something, and then they walked away shoulder to shoulder. The girl who had taken the photo looked at the photo of herself and Immortal Toya with an intoxicated expression. She watched their backs from a distance, her chest aching uncontrollably. At the same time, she couldn't help sighing in her heart. He's clearly so handsome, what a pity, he's actually gay. Immortal Toya had finally successfully met up with the legendary Ling Jinren. Actually, this could be considered his second time meeting Wang Ling. The last time Wang Ling and grenade-throwing senior Immortal had been on a mission several years ago, Immortal Toya remembered seeing Ling Jinren face to face from a distance. The truth was that it had just been Wang Ling's clone that time, and even Wang Ling himself had no memory of it. Back then, Immortal Toya had felt that Ling Jinren wasn't an ordinary young man. Now that he was up close, this feeling was even stronger. No matter how a cultivator maintained their youthful looks, whether it was a medicinal bath or a youthful elixir, their youthful vigor would gradually disappear as they grew older and their cultivation deepened, but Wang Ling's vigor was actually maintained very well. How on earth did he maintain his youthful looks? Immortal Toya cupped his chin in his hand and stared at Wang Ling curiously. This high-end apartment in the city cost 200,000 yuan per square meter, which was already considered an apartment for the nobility. Usually, security was pretty tight, and unauthorized people weren't allowed in. Immortal Toya carrying such a big gourd on his back was really a little ostentatious, and he was stopped by the security guard as soon as he reached the entrance. The guard stared at the 2 of them. "Who are you looking for?" "We're looking for someone," Immortal Toya answered truthfully and got straight to the point. The guard replied politely, "The owner has to call us first before you can go in." "Then if it's the owner, can we go in directly?" Immortal Toya asked. The guard nodded. "Of course." Immortal Toya gave an "oh" before he took out his phone and tapped the screen several times with his slender fingers. 3 minutes later, he pushed the phone screen in front of the guard. It was a list of online house purchases. In just 3 minutes, Immortal Toya had directly spent 30 million yuan to buy a house. Wang Ling, the 2 of them walked to the entrance of the apartment and found the ramp that led to the basement. "The soul condensing incense has to be made on the spot, it's best this way. I've brought all the ingredients, and it'll take about 5 minutes to make. If those delivery little brothers were really killed, I'll put their souls in this gourd. The spirit water in this gourd will ensure that their souls don't scatter," Immortal Toya said as he put the gourd down on his back. Wang Ling nodded, and at the same time, his gaze directly penetrated several walls to look at the suspicious abandoned convenience store in the distance. He was 100% sure that there was someone inside, and an expert at that. Wang Ling knew that a barrier had been set up outside the convenience store, and that the average person's spiritual senses couldn't penetrate it at all. Of course, Wang Ling could forcibly penetrate it, but that would alert the enemy a little. There was no way that the master of Shadow Stream, who had lost 600 years of cultivation, would be able to set up such a powerful barrier. Sure enough, as everyone in the group said, this matter really isn't simple. Immortal Toya also stared at the convenience store, deep in thought. An alchemist's 5 senses were different from those of an ordinary person after years of being exposed to drugs, so he could also sense the hostility inside. "Senior, change into your clothes first, then we'll test the waters." As he said this, Immortal Toya took out a yellow delivery uniform which Jinren had bought from Taba earlier, and had sent it by express air transport. Although the workmanship was a little rough, it was still a perfect imitation overall. Especially the huge "me" character on the back of the delivery uniform, it instantly reminded him of his school uniform at number 60 high school. He felt that the designer of these 2 clothes was probably the same person. After changing into the delivery uniform, Wang Ling straightened the creases on his clothes. Immortal Toya looked him up and down carefully, and felt that Wang Ling was still missing something. Did Senior bring anything to eat? Since he had decided to put on an act, of course he had to go all the way. No matter how you thought about it, it was very suspicious for someone to come knocking empty-handed in a delivery uniform. Of course, Wang Ling's takeout was already ready. With a flash of spirit light, a plastic bag instantly appeared in his right hand. Inside the plastic bag was the tear-provoking soup dumpling-flavored crispy noodle snacks which Grandfather Wang had worked overnight last night. Chapter 187. In the abandoned convenience store, the old devil, who hadn't eaten meat for 1,000 years, picked his teeth. Then, cracks appeared on his body, and in the end, he turned into a sand-like substance that fell to the ground. Sure enough, half an hour is already the limit. Devil Emperor Gua Pai sighed, and had no choice but to return to the stone ghost mask. The delivery little brother who had been replaced by the stone ghost mask was also caught by Devil Emperor Gua Pai and tossed to one side. This rice ball delivery little brother cowered in a corner, shivering. Similarly, this little brother's soul had also been forcibly replaced by Devil Emperor Gua Pai when he had been delivering food. This was already the 32nd delivery little brother who had suffered such a cruel fate. But this little brother was a little special. Although he had also been carrying an insulated rice ball delivery box, it had essentially been prepared by the business itself. If they didn't return to their bodies within 72 hours, their souls would scatter. However, the crux of the matter was that the bodies of these delivery men had been ruined by the old devil. Lord Devil Emperor, is this really all right? Jiang Luiyue raised her eyebrows at this scene. She knew that this matter had probably already attracted the attention of the outside world. It's their honor to be used by my venerable self. In the black fog, Devil Emperor Gua Pai let out a strange laugh. But my venerable self never expected that the power of science and technology would actually allow cultivation to develop to this extent. Most of these 32 delivery boys are actually at the foundation establishment stage. Now, from body tempering to chi condensation, foundation establishment and golden core, it's compulsory to receive education. So foundation establishment cultivators aren't rare at all. But the difference lies in actual combat experience and cultivation, Jiang Luiyue replied. Devil Emperor Gua Pai nodded, feeling that he could make use of this point. Thinking back to the Gua Pai army that he had formed 1,000 years ago, it was precisely because their strength was uneven that they were ultimately defeated. Now, the world's foundation establishment and gold core cultivators had become compulsory education, and even the delivery man was a foundation establishment cultivator. In the future, he wouldn't have to go through so much trouble to recruit soldiers like he had in the past. Perhaps as long as he conquered a few universities, he would have enough human resources. In the black fog, Devil Emperor Gua Pai was deep in thought. A moment later, he stared at the soul of the delivery boy in the corner. Junior, my venerable self asks you, what is the proportion of foundation establishment cultivators in your restaurant who are delivery boys like you? How many are there? Sir, we're just a branch. If we look at it from a national perspective, we account for about 20% of the population, which is about 3 million people. The young man hugged his head and shrank in the corner. He was just a delivery man, and there were many other delivery men like him. Who knew what he had experienced today? Your restaurant has more than 3 million foundation building cultivators. So many? Devil Emperor Gua Pai's expression shook as he stared at the delivery boy and asked, "My venerable self ordered a bit too many things just now and I can't remember them all." "What did you just give him?" "Braised chicken and rice." The young man replied weakly. Jiang Luiyue sked. "I see, no wonder they have so many people." In the black fog, Devil Emperor Gua Pai had an incredulous expression on his face. "Is this braised chicken and rice so powerful?" Jiang Luiyue nodded. This should be the second largest restaurant chain in Huashu Nation, Devil Emperor Gua Pai. So, first place is? Jiang Luiyue, Sha County Snacks. Realization dawned on Devil Emperor Gua Pai. This place's wonton and mixed noodles seemed pretty good. On the other side, Wang Ling was already approaching the convenience store in his rice ball takeout knockoff uniform and carrying a plastic bag of crispy noodle snacks. He could sense that there was something dark in the convenience store, but he couldn't describe what exactly it was. Even just standing at the entrance made him feel uncomfortable from the bottom of his heart. As Immortal Toya had expected, there was too much malevolence here. Using his heavenly eye, Wang Ling could see many spirits floating near the convenience store. It was very likely that these spirits were the souls of those delivery men. The missing delivery men were definitely related to this convenience store. Inside the convenience store, Devil Emperor Gua Pai was also very vigilant. The moment Wang Ling had approached, he had already sensed that someone was coming. Another delivery man? Lord Devil Emperor ordered something again? Jiang Luiyue blushed with shame and felt that this 10,000-year-old glutton she had freed was a little scary. "Oh, not really. My venerable self has already ordered all the takeaways in the vicinity, so there's no point in trying anything else." In the black fog, Devil Emperor Gua Pai's smile was very strange. This person is wearing a uniform and carrying a bag in his hand. Could he have delivered to the wrong place? It's possible. Jiang Luiyue nodded as she used her spiritual senses to sense the closed door of the convenience store. But I suspect that this person might be 1-inch ash or steamed bun invasion in disguise. Camouflage was a necessary lesson for killers. Using a suitable disguise to lower the enemy's guard and finally deliver a fatal blow. Jiang Luiyue was naturally on guard against this kind of method. As the master of Shadow Stream, she had seen all kinds of storms over the years. Devil Emperor Gua Pai, are you sure that this person is in disguise? Jiang Luiyue nodded solemnly. I didn't dare say it before, but now I'm certain that this person is definitely that steamed bun invasion that I mentioned to Lord Devil Emperor before. This person's aura concealment technique is extremely powerful, and it's very easy for people to mistake him for an ordinary person. Now that you mention it, my venerable self also suddenly feels that this person is a little suspicious. In the black fog, Devil Emperor Gua Pai's expression darkened. An ordinary aura concealment technique wouldn't work in front of a 10,000-year-old devil like him. However, this old devil had discovered that his spiritual senses were abnormally vague when probing this person outside. If this was the case, then the situation was already very clear. This person was definitely in disguise on purpose. If you were to fight this person head-on, how confident would you be? Devil Emperor Gua Pai asked. In my heyday, I wouldn't have paid any attention to him, but now I can only rely on Lord Devil Emperor. Jiang Luiyue grit her teeth. Lord Devil Emperor, you said before that you would cooperate with me. You won't go back on your word, right? Devil Emperor Gua Pai, since my venerable self has agreed to cooperate with you, I naturally won't go back on my word. Even if I don't do it for your sake, my venerable self has to do it for the sake of the braised chicken and rice and the Shaxian snacks. Jiang Luiyue, go on, open the door. In the black fog, Devil Emperor Gua Pai took a deep breath and fixed his gaze on Jiang Luiyue. Step back a little, my venerable self is going to show off. Chapter 188. On the other side, just as Wang Ling and Devil Emperor Gua Pai were about to start fighting, an old Taoist in white appeared in front of this high-end apartment. After his intimate encounter with Killer Taoist, in grenade-throwing senior immortals Wenxian Garden, Third Saint had done a lot of research behind his back. He discovered that this assassin, who was known as the most ferocious assassin in the world of assassins, was actually a man of chivalry and justice. Those who died tragically at his hands were all heinous villains. The more despicable these villains were, the more miserable their deaths would be when they were caught by killer Taoist. To his dismay, Third Saint discovered that after imitating the actions of this great senior of the assassin world for so many years, there was actually a huge problem with the direction of his imitation. The power of an idol was very strong. Hence, after officially jumping ship from Immortal Castle, Third Saint had been looking for an opportunity to uphold justice. He wanted to use this method to wash away the negative karma he had committed over the years. At the entrance of Jinghua City's green and orange high-class apartment, Third Saint stood at the entrance according to his phone's location. According to the TV news, Third Saint had investigated the coordinates of where the delivery man had disappeared, and then found this place himself. According to the GPS on his phone, the nearest location was the convenience store in the basement of the apartment. Just as Third Saint was about to go in, the security guard from before stopped him at the entrance and said, "Sir, if you want to go in to look for someone, you need to call our security office first before you can go in." Third Saint scratched his head. "Then if I'm the owner, can I directly enter?" "Of course." The security guard nodded and stared warily at Third Saint. Somehow, he felt that these words sounded a little familiar. Third Saint nodded, then took out his phone and tapped on it a few times. After that, he handed an online payment list to the security guard. "Can I go in now?" The security guard was completely dumbfounded. That was because the white-robed old Taoist had directly bought a building. That was the third phase of the green-orange high-class condominiums. There were a total of 3 condominiums. Before the second building was completed, the first building had already been bought. This little security guard was completely dumbfounded. Had the nouveau riche become so worthless these days? But he was still struggling at the bottom of society. He didn't even have time to look for a girlfriend. He was a single dog who only thought about serving the people. The security guard clenched his fists angrily as he watched the old Taoist in white leave. He was filled with grief and indignation. Not far from the convenience store, Immortal Toya crouched in an inconspicuous little corner. He had already ground the ingredients he had brought and mixed them evenly into a transparent medicinal glass container. "Condense." With a light shout, a ball of spirit light appeared in Immortal Toya's hand, and the medicinal powder in the glassware rapidly congealed into a paste at a speed visible to the naked eye. Just like that, the soul-condensing incense was ready. Immortal Toya held the glass container in his right hand, and wisps of flame sprouted from his palm. After doing all this, Immortal Toya heaved a sigh of relief. "It's been heated up, we just need to wait for those wronged souls to come over. I wonder how Senior Ling is now." The gray-haired young man raised his beautiful eyes and glanced in Wang Ling's direction. There was still no movement, so it was obvious that they hadn't made a move yet. However, the soul-condensing incense reacted in less than 10 seconds after burning. Immortal Toya opened his heavenly eye, and very quickly saw wisps of illusory green mist gathering from all directions. Following the scent of the soul-condensing incense, Immortal Toya pushed open the large gourd on his back. "Little brothers, don't be nervous. Although your bodies have already left your bodies, as long as your souls enter my gourd, I can guarantee that your souls won't be destroyed, and there's a chance that they'll return to their bodies in the future." When Immortal Toya said this, he actually didn't have much confidence in his heart. A soul returning to a body sounded easy, but it wasn't simple at all. Every soul and body had a certain level of compatibility. From a scientific point of view, it was like matching bone marrow. If the compatibility wasn't high enough, the body wouldn't be long before it exploded on the spot. It wasn't as simple as finding a random body and putting it together like legend had it. "Exalted Immortal can see us?" In an instant, more than 10 ghosts floated over from nearby, and when they saw Immortal Toya with his heavenly eye open, it was as if they had been granted amnesty. "You're all the delivery riders who were killed recently, right?" Immortal Toya asked as he looked at the ghosts. "That's right, Exalted Immortal. That evil spirit in the convenience store was too fast. He knocked me down as soon as he opened the door. Tell me, if it was a one-on-one fight, how could he be my match? Said a ghost in a thick northeastern accent. Immortal Toya. Why are there so few of you? The news reports say that you've lost contact with 32 people in total. Exalted Immortal, you may not know, but a lot of brothers have floated away in the last few days. In the end, the sun directly burned them out. We've been floating around in this basement for the last few days, and we've been calling each other takeout guys. It's easier to remember. That northeastern takeout rider, said the ghost, spreading his hands. Immortal Toya, Exalted Immortal, can this gourd really protect our souls? Asked one of the ghosts. I'm a motorbike, I was knocked down as soon as I delivered the chicken. As expected, there are still perverts nowadays who can't even afford to eat chicken. It's really hard to guard against them. Immortal Toya sighed. This gourd is a magic treasure I refined, and there's a small world inside. You can live in it for the time being. Wait for us to find a way to help you restore your bodies. Of course, in the meantime, we might have to trouble you to point out the murderer. Since Exalted Immortal has said so, no problem. Immortal Toya nodded. Then everyone can register first and line up to enter my gourd. The ghost, there's one more question, Exalted Immortal. Immortal Toya, go ahead, the ghost, actually, there's still a brother named Braised Chicken Rice, whose fate is currently unknown. We're guessing that he's probably been imprisoned by that evil spirit in the convenience store. If Your Excellency Exalted Immortal can help us, we'll be eternally grateful. I didn't expect you to have such deep feelings for each other. Immortal Toya sighed. Don't worry, the one standing at the entrance of the convenience store right now is a great senior in the cultivation world whom we've specially invited to resolve this matter. Thank you, Exalted Immortal. Thank you, Exalted Immortal. As soon as the ghost finished expressing his thanks, 3 clouds of blue mist immediately floated over, and the 4 ghosts introduced themselves shoulder to shoulder. Hello, Exalted Immortal, I'm Lanzhao Ramen. I'm Shaxian Snacks. I'm Gillen Rice Noodles. Exalted Immortal, may I ask if there's a presidential suite in your small world? Give my Chongqing chicken rice some face. Chapter 189. Wang Ling stood at the entrance of the convenience store with the bag in his hand. He saw a woman open the shutter door inside, and almost instantly, a black fog swiftly seeped out through the crack in the shutter door. In the last 2 days, Devil Emperor Guo Pai had already used this method on 32 people, and he was becoming more and more proficient at it. Not far away, Immortal Toya was stupefied when he saw this scene. This speed was too fast, and even with his heavenly eye open, he was a little overwhelmed. Senior, be careful. Buzz. In the next moment, a large mass of black fog directly enveloped Wang Ling's figure. Devil Emperor Guo Pai was very excited, because he could sense that this was a young man's fresh body, which was full of vitality. Smells so good. He couldn't help exclaiming in admiration, feeling that the smell emanating from this body was as attractive as a drug. Wang Ling looked at this scene expressionlessly, his eyes very cold. Wrapped in the black fog, he couldn't see anything in the pitch-black surroundings, and could only hear an old voice talking to itself. Then, he saw a mask suddenly appear in the black fog. The stone ghost mask? Wang Ling narrowed his eyes to make sure he wasn't seeing things. But, why was it here? In the dark, Devil Emperor Guo Pai couldn't help sneering. In the end, this was still a junior. He had just made a move, but had he already been scared out of his wits? He stood there like a block of wood, not daring to move at all. Junior, my venerable self will accept your body. In the end, the stone ghost mask accurately covered Wang Ling's face, and the barbs on both sides of the mask, which looked like crab claws, stabbed viciously at Wang Ling's cheeks. However, contrary to Devil Emperor Guo Pai's expectations, the familiar piercing sensation didn't come. The barbs on both sides of the mask had actually hit a wall. Ever since he had used the stone ghost mask, this had never happened before. This mask was made of primordial black crystal, which was currently the hardest substance known in the universe. What was going on? A trace of doubt surfaced in Devil Emperor Gua Pai's mind. At that moment, the youngster in front of him suddenly glowed with a golden light, which vibrated in the black fog and released an invisible force that directly dispersed the black fog around him. Golden body? Devil Emperor Gua Pai finally realized why the barbs couldn't pierce him. Damn! This guy was actually an expert with a sage body? These days, even people with physical body saints came to deliver takeout. The black fog was dispersed by the golden light, and the stone ghost mask had nowhere to hide. Devil Emperor Gua Pai's vague voice came through the air. Your Excellency, who on earth are you? At that moment, even if Wang Ling hadn't said it, Devil Emperor Gua Pai already had an idea in his heart. This person definitely wasn't the steamed bun invasion Jiang Luiyue had mentioned. He was merely a killer ranked 8th on the ranking list, and was only at the soul formation stage, but it wasn't easy to cultivate a sage body. For thousands of years, this was the limit of the body that countless cultivators had been pursuing. There were too many people who desired to reach this level. This was an absolute shield. Those who had attained sage physique would have an indestructible golden body and would be impervious to all techniques. Devil Emperor Gua Pai instantly felt like he had been tricked by Jiang Luiyue. A sage body was a realm that even he hadn't reached. Based on this sage body alone, Devil Emperor Gua Pai already knew that he wouldn't be this person's match if he relied solely on his current state and didn't have any means of attack. For now, there was only one last option. He swiftly manipulated a mass of black fog to turn around and rush toward Jiang Luiyue. The two of them had already signed a contract. If they encountered a crisis, Jiang Luiyue was willing to offer her body at any time. So very quickly, he saw the stone ghost mask and Jiang Luiyue fuse together. Borrowing Jiang Luiyue's body, Devil Emperor Gua Pai stood up from the ground once again. Black fog seeped out of his eye sockets, and he looked like a skeleton that had been reborn from an ancient coffin. Who would have thought that after being sealed for so long, would still run into an expert with a sage body? Devil Emperor Gua Pai narrowed his eyes in Jiang Luiyue's body. He opened his right arm and shouted softly, "Sword, come!" Buzz! There was a sound, and the air instantly shook as a crack opened, from which a black dagger emerged and fell into his hand. This was Devil Emperor Gua Pai's technique, the power of the old devil who had struck fear into the hearts of everyone in Huaxiao Nation back then. He had actually hidden a magic sword in a space that he had created, and only he could summon it when necessary. This technique was already far beyond the soul formation stage. Wang Ling gazed at this black dagger. Its silver blade was actually engraved with strange patterns from ancient times, and its blade was as smooth as snow, reflecting Devil Emperor Gua Pai's evil eyes. Devil Emperor Gua Pai opened his hand, and the black dagger directly floated in the air. He stared at Wang Ling and said indifferently, "Slash." In the blink of an eye, the black dagger's physical body disappeared and turned into a black sword light. The sword's shadow flickered like lightning as it ruthlessly chopped down at Wang Ling. At the same time, a streak of light also swiftly responded from Wang Ling's pocket. It was a brown sword light, and it rose up to meet the black dagger's light. Devil Emperor Gua Pai sneered. "It's no use. My sword is an ancient magic weapon I obtained from an ancient tomb, and is a top-notch holy weapon. Its greatest function is that it can be used to hit acupuncture points and break the golden body. Nowadays, there are only a handful of swords that can contend with it." But as soon as he said this, the two sword lights collided. As light and shadow intertwined, the brown sword light gradually swallowed up the black dagger. In the next moment, it turned into a torrent that ruthlessly smashed toward Devil Emperor Gua Pai. The power of this backlash was so great that Devil Emperor Gua Pai opened his hands and tightly grasped this brown ball of light. At the same time, his body trembled violently, and it took a lot of effort for him to finally tear apart the power of Jinka's backlash. However, he was already drenched in sweat. It had practically taken half of his old life away. The brown sword light fell back into Wang Ling's hand, and he stared at Wang Ling in disbelief. F***K. It was actually a peachwood sword. What kind of joke was this? Today, either you die or I die. Devil Emperor Gua Pai roared furiously. He summoned the black dagger back and personally stepped forward to fight. Wang Ling's expression was calm, and he didn't care at all about the other party's roar. He just stood there, and in his eyes, all of Devil Emperor Guo Pai's movements seemed extremely slow. He could even see this frantic Devil Emperor charging toward him with a sword in hand, and all kinds of subtle expressions on his face. 10 meters. 8 meters, 6 meters, clutching the ancient magic sword, Devil Emperor Guo Pai's momentum was fierce. Then, when he was only 4 meters away from Wang Ling, his huge chest, which was shaking violently, finally completely lost its center of gravity. Wang Ling instantly noticed an embarrassed expression on this Devil Emperor Guo Pai's face. This ancient devil suddenly let out an "Aya" and fell to the ground with a thud. Wang Ling, follow Lord Ku Xianjun on WeChat/Weibo and follow the Weibo topic #The Daily Life of the Immortal King #More novels to dis and book friends to discuss. Lord Ku Xianjun will regularly give away novel accessories and physical prizes on Weibo. Chapter 190. For a moment, the scene turned awkward. Gripping the ancient magic sword, Devil Emperor Guo Pai fell at Wang Ling's feet like a devil cult disciple kowtowing to the ground. The spirit energy wrapped around the ancient magic sword had yet to disperse, and as soon as the black dagger touched the ground, cracks instantly appeared in the ground around it and spread out in all directions. But Wang Ling's eyes and hands were quick, and he reached out to grab the sword in his hand. Wang Ling felt a vigorous wave of magic power vibrating in his hand. Lying on the ground, Devil Emperor Guo Pai raised his head and sneered. So what if you have a sage body? My ancient magic sword is specially designed to break a sage body. With this sword in hand, sword chi has entered your body, and a hole has appeared in your sage body. Now, my venerable self's chance has come. Wang Ling frowned slightly. He had indeed felt a trace of sword chi enter his body, but the effect on him was negligible, and it wasn't the key to deciding the outcome of the battle. But it seemed that this old devil had misunderstood something. Seeing Wang Ling grab the magic sword, he laughed wildly in his heart, confident that everything was going according to his plan. The next moment, he stood up from the ground, holding the 2 lumps in front of his chest. Sword chi has entered your body. Unless the sword is destroyed, it will follow you for the rest of your life. This sword is made from ancient materials, and the longer it is kept, the stronger it becomes. It's impossible for you to break it. Hearing the old devil's words, Wang Ling stared blankly for a moment. Then, with a crack, the ancient magic sword was directly crushed into pieces. Breaking the sword, this was his special skill. Wang Ling recalled how he had taught himself how to break a magic sword with his bare hands when he was 1 year old. The sword power faded, and the ancient magic sword suddenly lost all its luster. At the same time, the whole scene fell into a deathly silence. In the distance, Immortal Toya was stupefied, and even Third Saint, who had just arrived at the scene, was directly rooted to the spot. What were they seeing? Although they were far away and didn't know exactly what had happened, they could still see the trend of the battle based on the expression of the possessed master of Shadow Stream Jiang Luiyue. At that moment, the old devil was sweating profusely and his clothes were drenched. He looked at the young man in front of him as if he was looking at a monster and sucked in a deep breath of cold air. Although he was very reluctant to admit it, Devil Emperor Guo Pai knew that he had no chance of winning given the current situation. Breaking an ancient sword with his bare hands, even when he was at his peak, he had never seen such a savage person. What had happened in this world while he had been sealed away by the stone ghost mask? Wang Ling took off the knockoff yellow takeaway helmet on his head to reveal a head of black hair. Half of his face had been blocked by the windproof cover of the mask earlier, so Devil Emperor Guo Pai could now clearly see Wang Ling's face. The string in his mind instantly tightened, because he had actually seen this person before. When the stone ghost mask had first been delivered to the Wang family's small villa, Devil Emperor Guo Pai remembered that he had used it to trap a teenager, but the barbs hadn't been able to pierce through. Now, he finally realized that these two were actually the same person. At that moment, the old devil was already drenched in sweat as he stared fixedly at Wang Ling. This was a kind of fear he had never felt before. He had faced countless enemies over the past 1,000 years, but none of them had ever frightened him as much as he did today. Your Excellency, who on earth are you? The old devil's eyes were fixed on Wang Ling. Wang Ling frowned and wasn't prepared to answer. However, at that moment, an old Taoist in white suddenly jumped out from behind him. Master of Shadow Stream. Facing Senior Killer Taoist, why aren't you going to surrender? Wang Ling, Killer Taoist, is it? That junior who's ranked first on the killer list? He. I'll remember you. The old devil's eyes darkened as he looked at Third Saint behind Wang Ling. And you, I'll also remember you. As soon as he said this, the old devil suddenly released a purple gold mist. His figure swiftly disappeared into the mist, leaving behind a few words, just you wait. Then, he disappeared without a trace. Ling Junren is really amazing. Immortal Toya exclaimed in his heart as he walked over from a distance. Even with his heavenly eye, he hadn't been able to clearly see the exchange between the two top experts just now. Now, he seriously suspected that his heavenly eye might be fake. The purple gold mist in front of Wang Ling gradually dissipated, and he felt that it was a little unfortunate. For Wang Ling, capturing this old devil alive was far more difficult than killing him. If he had come with the intention to kill from the beginning, he wouldn't have given the other party any chance to escape. But it had to be said that as a person who had once been a headache for the entire Huaxiu nation, Wang Ling had indeed experienced firsthand how formidable this old devil was. He was well aware that in terms of raw strength, this old devil naturally wasn't his match. But the bad thing was that this old devil had hidden a lot of magic treasures that Wang Ling didn't know about, and they were all hidden in an alternate space that he had opened up. When he needed them, he could reach into the space and pull them out, which was as tricky as Doraemon's space pocket. This purple gold mist was one of the magic treasures that Devil Emperor Gua Pai had used to escape. Of course, the old devil also had something else left, which was the ancient dagger that Wang Ling had already crushed to pieces on the ground. The middle section of the dagger had already been crushed into sand by Wang Ling, and it didn't look like it could be restored. Thus, the old devil had simply flung it away as if it were cabbage. Standing behind Wang Ling, Third Saint and Immortal Toya opened their heavenly eyes to investigate their surroundings. After confirming that Jiang Luiyue had already disappeared without a trace, they couldn't help sighing. What a pity, she actually got away. Third Saint shook his head with a regretful expression, then turned to Immortal Toya and bowed. You must be Senior Immortal Toya, right? I am Third Saint. You know me? Immortal Toya is very famous, of course this junior knows you. Third Saint's words were actually quite hollow. This was because when he and the other 9 saints had planned to rob grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's House of the Stone Ghost Mask, the 10 saints had investigated all the people close to grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, so if he told the truth, Third Saint felt that he would definitely be treated as a pervert. I'm not that famous, right? Immortal Toya scratched his head a little embarrassedly. He knew about Third Saint. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had mentioned him in the chat group before that one of the 10 saints called Third Saint had defected. Who would have thought that they would actually run into him here in this way today? Furthermore, Immortal Toya actually knew that this Third Saint had in fact always regarded Ling Junren as that legendary great expert who was ranked number 1 on the list of killers, Killer Taoist. But looking at the current situation, Ling Junren didn't seem to have any intention of clarifying things. Immortal Toya immediately got the message. Chapter 191. Wang Ling used telepathy to convey his guess to the two of them. In the end, both Immortal Toya and Third Saint had astonished expressions on their faces. I thought that the Lord of Shadow Stream just now looked a little strange. So she has the stone ghost mask? Also, according to Senior's judgment, the Lord of Shadow Stream Jiang Luiyue has already reached a deal with Devil Emperor Gua Pai. The person who fought with Senior just now was in fact the Devil Emperor inside Jiang Luiyue's body? After Immortal Toya's forceful analysis, Third Saint couldn't help sweating. He had actually shouted at an ancient devil just now, and the other party had even said before escaping that he had remembered him. This was a little embarrassing. If the other party seized the opportunity to catch him, Third Saint felt that he would definitely be doomed. If that's the case, the situation is complicated. Immortal Toya sighed. The situation was more troublesome than he had imagined. Now that that old devil had been released, Huaxiao Nation wouldn't be at peace for some time to come. Not only did the old devil have extraordinary skills, he also had a lot of magic weapons that had been lost around the world on him. He would suddenly pull out a heaven-defying magic treasure. The purple gold fog which he had used to escape just now was one of them. Before that purple gold fog had appeared, Wang Ling had been using his heavenly eye, which he had already cultivated to the extreme, to investigate it, but he hadn't been able to pick up any clues from it. The fog had enveloped the devil, and in the blink of an eye, it had disappeared without a trace. It was as if it had simply hidden itself in another world, and there wasn't the slightest trace of it. Do you know the origin of this magic treasure? Wang Ling tilted his head slightly as he asked the two people next to him telepathically. I think it's a little like the purple gold gourd. Immortal Toya voiced his guess. Immortal Jinyuan's purple gold gourd was a great life-saving magic weapon, and was also known as a quasi-divine weapon. Furthermore, the purple gold fog which flowed out of the gourd was purple gold. Rumor had it that this fog was bound to two places, and when it was released, it could quickly take a person away. It was a little like a portable transmission array, but it was much faster and could be used at will without giving anyone a chance to escape. The purple gold gourd is one of Immortal Jinyuan's 3 great magic treasures. Together with the 7 stars sword and the golden canopy rope, they are also known as the 3 auspicious treasures. Back then, Immortal Jinyuan had deliberately released these 3 magic treasures for the fated to find, and a lot of cultivators had done everything they could to collect them. Immortal Jinyuan had said that if anyone could gather all 3 of these magic treasures, he would take them in as a senior disciple. In order to confuse the real thing, Immortal Jinyuan had even made a lot of fakes. At that time, collecting these 3 auspicious treasures was like collecting crispy noodle snacks. It was all the rage for a time. Third Saint said with a reminiscing look on his face. Wang Ling, that seems to be the case. Immortal Toya hissed and said, but so far, we haven't been able to successfully collect them all. Even if I can gather all of them, I don't know if they are real or fake. However, the purple gold gourd in the old devil's hands is definitely real. Only the real thing can move so fast. As Third Saint continued, he turned to look at Wang Ling. By the way, does Senior have a way to track down this devil? Wang Ling nodded and turned his gaze to the broken ancient magic sword on the ground. As long as he could repair the magic sword and trace it back to the devil's magic treasure small world, there would still be a chance. But the middle section of this magic sword has already been smashed to pieces. Is it really possible to repair it? Crouching on the ground, Immortal Toya stroked the broken body of the ancient magic sword. Don't worry, as long as Senior Kill does it, it'll definitely be possible. Third Saint snorted through his nostrils and stared at Wang Ling with the expression of a fanboy. As expected of the sword Senior Kill made. Even if it's broken, it's still so sexy. For some reason, Immortal Toya suddenly wanted to request a song, Masudong's, too deep in character. Although Wang Ling had only met this legendary old devil face to face this time, he had already deeply felt how dangerous this person was. Next, it was time to clean up the mess that he was happy to see. Although it looked like a small battle, both sides were almighty cultivators with the power to move mountains and drain seas with a flip of their hands. Even if it was just a small battle, the collision of auras had caused severe damage to the surrounding area. The old devil's aura had already completely torn down the shuttered door of the convenience store, and the walls around it and on the ground were already cracked. Even the many stone pillars supporting the basement looked as if they had been gnawed on by insects, and looked extremely dilapidated. And the most tragic of all were the dozens of luxury cars parked in the basement. Their headlights had all been blown to smithereens by the aura, and even their tires were flat. Actually, Wang Ling had already done his best to control his strength. There were more than 100 households in this building, and if he had really fought the old devil seriously just now, they would have suffered. This kind of place was too limited, and Wang Ling had to take too many factors into account. Next time, he had to find an open space and take down that devil in one fell swoop. While Wang Ling was thinking this, police sirens could already be heard outside the basement on the other side. The only good news now was that no passers-by had been injured in the fight just now. On his way here, Third Saint had already known that there had been a fight in the basement, and had blankly blocked some of the residents who had wanted to enter the basement. The police had most likely been called over by those passers-by. Teachers Shaw and Senior Toya, leave first, I'll handle the rest. Third Saint said righteously with his hands on his hips. The damage here is a little serious, we'll probably have to pay a lot of money, Immortal Toya said. It's so vulgar for cultivators to talk about money. Is worldly money still money to us? It's just a basement. In order to create a superior fighting environment for Senior Toya just now, I even took out the elevator wires in this building for fear that someone would take the elevator to the basement and disturb Senior Toya. Wang Ling, after that, Wang Ling and Immortal Toya took their leave. Standing where he was, Third Saint waved in the direction where Wang Ling had disappeared. Goodbye, Senior Toya. Very quickly, several police cars with flashing sirens swooped down from above the basement. 7 or 8 of them stopped in front of Third Saint, and more than 10 police officers poured out of them to form a semicircle around Third Saint. Third Saint raised his eyebrows. He knew that the fight had begun. Looking at the serious damage to the basement, the police captain immediately fished out an immortal locking handcuff and threw it at Third Saint. Comrade in front. Please immediately hand over your magic weapon of mass destruction, put on the handcuffs, and cooperate with our investigation. Third Saint raised his hand with an innocent expression on his face. Comrade police, you misunderstand, I didn't do this. What evidence do you have? The police captain asked. Then, Third Saint slowly turned around and lifted his white clothes. Suddenly, 4 large characters appeared on his back. These were the 4 characters that Wang Ling had signed on Third Saint's back when he had pretended to be Killer Taoist. In order to preserve his signature, Third Saint hadn't showered for more than half a month. Putting his hands behind his back, Third Saint pointed at his back with his thumb. He tilted his head to reveal a mouthful of white teeth as he actually smiled. See? Loyal to the country. Chapter 192. Just like that, Wang Ling and Devil Emperor Gua Pai's first battle finally ended with Third Saint being brought back to the police station for questioning. It had to be said that Third Saint, who had already completely fallen into the hands of Killer Taoist's little fanboy, was still able to show off his fanboy status unhurriedly even though he was in the detention center. At the cultivation police station, Third Saint was wearing immortal locking handcuffs as 2 police officers sat in front of him. One of the police officers raised his eyelids and glanced at Third Saint. Name? Third Saint, you can call me Ah-san. Police officer, I'm asking for your real name, not your Taoist name. Third Saint nodded. Oh, then call me Yufei. Police officer. The other police officer who was taking notes took a deep breath and couldn't help raising his head to stare at Third Saint. Comrade, please don't joke around. Do you know where you are right now? Please be more serious. Third Saint took out his ID card from his lapel, and when the 2 police officers saw the name on it, they were dumbfounded. Because it really had the F*** King name Yufei on it. Of course, this ID card wasn't forged. Ever since Third Saint had provided grenade-throwing Senior Immortal with a clue that Immortal Castle was manufacturing fake drugs to poison students, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had helped Third Saint ask one of his brothers who was good at checking accounts to help him get an ID card to cover up his identity. The 2 police officers didn't believe it when they went to check his ID card, and were instantly speechless. According to the ID card scanner, this name was actually real. While Third Saint and the police were still dealing with each other, Wang Ling and Immortal Toya, who had left the scene, weren't idle. Including the braised chicken and rice, who had been rescued from the convenience store, there had been a total of 32 delivery riders, but only 21 of them were now in Immortal Toya's gourd. The 11 people who had been sacrificed needed to make a summary report to the cultivation police station, while the remaining 21 had already been temporarily resettled. But in the end, this wasn't a long-term solution. How to help these innocent delivery riders recover their bodies became a major topic of discussion in the chat group. In the chat group, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal sent a sighing emoji. It's basically confirmed that the master of Shadow Stream was behind the disappearance of the delivery riders this time. However, we only managed to save the souls of 21 people. The other 11 people were accidentally exposed to light after they transformed into souls, and their souls have already dispersed. Sometimes, we really have our own destiny. We've done our best. Sailyenjinren silently handed out a row of candles. After a brief silence in the group, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal sent another message. There's also bad news. Based on Brother Ling and Brother Toya's investigations this time, it has basically been confirmed that the other stone ghost mask is in the hands of the Master of Shadow Stream, Jiang Luyue. Furthermore, the old devil sealed in the stone ghost mask has already reached some kind of agreement with Jiang Luyue. As soon as the news was released, a large group of lurkers exploded in the group. Among them, 9x Man, who had not spoken for a long time, was stunned. What? That old devil was released? Really? This was a major piece of news. Legend had it that Devil Emperor Guapai, who had once led the Guapai army and almost caused war in Huaxiu Nation, had reappeared after disappearing for 1,000 years. If the media found out about this, it would probably cause panic throughout Huaxiu Nation. The people in the chat group were all his brothers, and grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, who had joined the group back then, had been strictly inspected, so he wasn't worried that this matter would be leaked out. Thus, after some thought, he decided to share the news. From Senior Immortal's tone, it should be true. Buelang Blade Immortal didn't doubt grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's words at all. Because I've noticed that Senior Immortal usually likes to send emoticons when he speaks. It's only when he's talking about serious matters that he doesn't send pictures. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, behind Buelang Blade Immortal, Lightning Dharmaraja sighed. But even if this gets out, there's probably no one who will believe it, right? There have been a lot of rumors in the past few years. A few years ago, a lot of people started a rumor that the old devil had reappeared and was secretly planning a counterattack. That's the problem. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal said, I'm just afraid that when word of this really gets out, everyone will think that the wolf is coming, and in the end, no one will believe it. But don't worry, this old devil can only borrow the Master of Shadow Stream's body for now, and he can only appear in this world through a soul swap. Furthermore, he has limited time, and hasn't truly recovered his full strength yet. So, Lightning Dharmaraja continued, perhaps this is an opportunity for us? As long as this old devil isn't at his peak, if we join forces, we'll definitely be able to fight him. An opportunity is an opportunity, but there's also a problem. This old devil now has a lot of magic treasures in his possession. He used to collect some great magic weapons, and we were completely unprepared when he suddenly took them out in battle. When Senior Ling confronted him this time, he used the purple gold gourd to escape. Immortal Toya couldn't help saying. Sailyenjinren, the purple gold gourd? Immortal Jinyuan's purple gold gourd? That's one of the legendary 3 auspicious treasures. I still have a fake set at home. In the end, he's still a veteran, so cunning. Lightning Dharmaraja sighed. But how did Senior Immortal know? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, of course it was Brother Ling who told me. When Brother Ling fought him earlier, the old devil confidently took out an ancient magic sword and threatened to cut Brother Ling into pieces. In the end, the old devil turned around and fled in panic. There were cries of surprise in the group. Ling Jinren is so fierce? Immortal Toya couldn't help testifying. Of course, I saw with my own eyes how Ling Jinren crushed the old devil's ancient magic sword. After saying that, Immortal Toya attached a picture of an ancient magic sword being crushed, which he had directly taken at the scene at the time. Buelang Blade Immortal sent several sweating emojis. Are you sure this is an ancient magic sword? As expected of Ling Jinren, he crushed the middle section of the magic sword into ashes. 9x Man, damn! Senior Ling Jinren is so fierce. Cheers for Ling Jinren. Lightning Dharmaraja sent a thumbs up. As expected of the representative of strength in our chat group, the gang leader of this generation. Ling Jinren. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal nodded in satisfaction. Everyone, say a few words and praise our Ling Jinren. He's definitely spying right now. Maybe when he's happy, he'll suddenly pop up and send ellipses. Chapter 193. The purple gold gourd's fog directly brought the old devil back to the space which had been bound to him back then. This was a small world, which was also the place where the Gua Pai army had first been established by the old devil 1,000 years ago. As soon as the old devil landed here, he lay prone on the ground and gasped for breath. It had been too dangerous just now. He had no doubt that if it hadn't been for this purple gold gourd's quick escape, he would have been beaten to death by the other party. Apart from the 2 lumps in his chest which he couldn't adapt to for the time being, Jiang Liuyue's body was pretty well suited to it. The only drawback was that he couldn't unleash his full power with this body. He had to find a way to restore his full strength as soon as possible. How much do you know about that killer Taoist? After a moment, the old devil calmed down and asked as he looked at the stone ghost mask in his hand. Jiang Liuyue's voice came from the stone ghost mask. I've never seen this person before, but he's very strong and his whereabouts are uncertain. He only kills the most vicious and evil people. The more vicious a person is, the more tragic their death will be. The more vicious they are, the more unsightly their deaths will be. The old devil laughed. Since the founding of Huaxiu Nation, how many old devils had there been who could strike fear into the hearts of the whole world? The old devil felt that this was simply a declaration of war. Was this a challenge? But I never expected this legendary killer Taoist to be so powerful, and have actually cultivated his body to the level of a sage. Jiang Liyue couldn't help sighing. Even Lord Devil Emperor almost suffered a great loss. The corners of Devil Emperor Gua Pai's mouth twitched. That was just my venerable self being careless. If my venerable self can find a body that is 100% compatible with me and sees the opportunity to return to my peak, this mere killer Taoist won't even be worth mentioning. Jiang Liyue didn't dare refute him. Through the stone ghost mask, she looked at the world she was in. Lord Devil Emperor, what is this place? This is a small world that my venerable self created back then. But this small world is different from other small worlds. Many people like to use magic treasures to create small worlds, and the gourd is the most common. The foundation of this small world is an alternate space. It's a space completely parallel to the real world. The old devil pointed at the magic array behind him. Do you see this magic array? This is the exit of this small world. As long as we step out of here, we will be able to return to reality. I remember that the location I chose all those years ago was a treasured land of mountains and rivers. I wonder what sort of scene it will be when I step out from here. Listening to Devil Emperor Gua Pai's introduction, Jiang Liyue was deeply astonished. The old devil had been sealed in the stone ghost mask for over 1,000 years, and this world hadn't been taken care of for over 1,000 years. The vitality of this small world was related to the spirit energy source of its owner. Logically speaking, after being sealed for so long, this world should have long been desolate, but contrary to Jiang Liyue's expectations, this small world which the 5 of them had taken care of was actually still operating normally. Thanks to your fleshly body, I was able to activate the purple gold gourd to return here. I once hid a lot of magic treasures in this small world, and now it's finally time to put them to use. The old devil smiled slightly. Taking the stone ghost mask with him, his feet shook, and they arrived at a place that looked like a grassland. However, the color of this grass was a little strange. It was actually black. Jiang Liyue felt that her horizons had been broadened. Lord Devil Emperor, where are we? The place we're standing on is the boundary pillar. This is the pillar that supports this small world. However, this small world was specially built, and the boundary pillar that supports it is the head of a humanoid troll that I brought out of the gate between worlds. Even though my venerable self has been sealed, this humanoid troll can provide me with a second spirit energy source. The old devil replied, this is the place in my small world with the most abundant spirit energy. If you continue to cultivate the recovery technique here, you'll be able to greatly reduce the time it takes for you to recover. If you quickly recover to your peak condition, my venerable self will also benefit. In the future, I'll be able to enter your body for a much longer time. So we're now on top of this humanoid troll's head? Jiang Liyue asked. That's right, that's right. This black grass is this humanoid troll's hair. The old devil nodded. I've already taken control of this humanoid troll and turned it into my venerable self's puppet. Jiang Luiyue, then Lord Devil Emperor's boundary pillar is really special. The old devil smiled slightly. He, compared with boundary pillar, I actually prefer another term. Jiang Luiyue, what is it? The old devil, human pillar strength. Jiang Luiyue, it was already evening when Wang Ling returned from the convenience store. For the first time, Wang Ling sent Audiobook a text message. Since the last time he had accepted this disciple, he hadn't had much use for him. But today, Wang Ling finally realized how useful he could be. He planned to ask Audiobook to bail Third Saint out of the police station first. After all, it wasn't Third Saint who had lost contact with the deliverman. There was no reason for Third Saint to be the sole scapegoat. Very quickly, Audiobook called him back. Wang Ling picked up the phone, but before he could say anything, Audiobook had already rambled on so much that Wang Ling couldn't get a word in edgewise. Shifu, don't worry, you're talking about that brother Third Saint, right? I'll send someone to negotiate with him right away. Oh, that's right, Shifu, once this is done, will there be a reward? Wang Ling opened his mouth and very much wanted to say, do you want a kiss or not? But he felt that saying it would sound a little gay, which wasn't good for his cold and aloof image, so in the end, he swallowed the words that were on the tip of his tongue. Audiobook didn't receive a reply, but he still persisted. Shifu, don't misunderstand, I don't want any material reward. I just want something that particularly invigorates my spirit, where I feel especially comfortable when I move, and then I'll be full of energy every day. Wang Ling, after a moment of silence, Audiobook felt that his words were more likely to cause misunderstandings, so he corrected himself. Shifu, don't misunderstand, I'm talking about a technique. After that, Wang Ling hung up the phone. After pondering for a bit, he sent Audiobook the latest set of eye exercises. This set of eye exercises was a brand new upgrade. When Audiobook had graduated from number 60 high back then, it had still been a regional trial version, and hadn't been fully popularized at all. It had to be said that Audiobook was quite efficient. It had only been half an hour since the phone call. Wang Ling turned on the news and saw Third Saint walk out of the police station surrounded by a group of reporters. To protect his privacy, his face had been covered in mosaics. Sir, could you reveal the details of the mass disappearance of the delivery workers this time? Some people think that you're actually an accomplice, right? It's only because there isn't enough evidence that you've been released, a female reporter asked Third Saint with a microphone in her hand. Third Saint glanced at the female reporter and said only 2 words. 1. Completely fabricated. 2. Already had a lawyer handle it. Wang Ling. Chapter 194. June 12th, Sunday of the 7th week of school. It seemed that the rice ball takeout rider incident had come to an end for the time being, but it was still troublesome to clean up the mess. After Audiobook fished Third Saint out, he began to assist grenade-throwing Senior Immortal in the follow-up investigation and cleanup. That night, they finished recording the statements of the 21 riders in the gourd. Although they were all souls now, their statements were still legally binding under Huaxiao Nation's cultivation laws. That's the basic situation. After a night of questioning, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal explained the incident in the chat group and fully promoted his good Samaritan spirit. The next thing we need to do is help these 21 surviving delivery riders apply for accident insurance from the insurance company. Early in the morning, Wang Ling scrolled through the chat logs in the group. Accident insurance? Cai Lianjinren was puzzled. There are 2 ways to deal with this external danger. The first was to pay compensation to the family. This was for those who had already died. I will also think of a way to help the families of the 11 delivery men who couldn't be saved. The second option was to create a physical body for them. It's also within the accident insurance, where the soul is relatively intact. How do I make a physical body? Cai Lianjinren asked. If one's realm is too high, of course it can't be done, but if it's below the gold core stage, it can still be done by combining the universal medical spirit lotus with the clay. But it's a little expensive, and is generally used to make limbs for the disabled. The cost of making a full body is astronomical for ordinary cultivators, but if it's covered by insurance, the cost is almost negligible, grenade-throwing senior immortal replied. Spirit Lotus? Wang Ling peeked at the screen. For some reason, he suddenly thought of that Neza from the fairy tales, Xilianjinren, but they are all in the gourd now. How do we apply for this? Even if it can be done, it has to be signed in person, right? It doesn't matter. Their souls just can't see the light. We can use their oral recording as a commission and go to the notary office to have it notarized and apply to be their agent. Grenade-throwing senior immortal sent a sinister smile emoji. Of course, I won't be doing this for free. After I discussed it with them yesterday, they agreed to give each of them 20% of the compensation insurance plan as my errand fee. Wang Ling. Xilianjinren, true immortal. I really thought you were a good person. Fellow Daoist Xilian, you're in the wrong here. Think about it, we've saved this group of people. If they don't do anything for us, do you think their conscience won't hurt? Xilianjinren, grenade-throwing senior immortal said, that's right, this senior immortal is a good person, but I'm not the Virgin Mary. I still have to take what I deserve. Furthermore, the maintenance fee for Brother Two's gourd's small world is not small. When we run errands, we have to spend a lot of money on public relations. The insurance and compensation are the most troublesome. It won't be settled without at least 20 to 30 trips. Listening to grenade-throwing senior immortal's words, Wang Ling nodded with deep understanding. Back then, when old man Wang applied for his pension during his first year of retirement, every time he went through the procedures, he would either be missing documents or stamps. The process took as long as half a year. Apart from that, there's one more important thing, and that is to find out the old devil's location as soon as possible. As long as that ancient dagger is restored, Brother Ling will be able to use his great magic power to directly track down the devil. Grenade-throwing senior immortal typed swiftly, I'm guessing that the purple gold gourd is connected to an alternate space. As long as the old devil doesn't show up, it's almost impossible to track him down. But that's a magic sword from ancient times. Is there really a way to restore it? Bulang Blade Immortal asked in the chat group. It can be restored. Grenade-throwing senior immortal said, this magic sword looks badly damaged, but it's actually only the middle section that's been crushed. The front and the hilt of the sword are still in good condition. As long as Dharmaraja uses the power of the godly thunder inheritance to weld the dagger together, it'll be fine. I've already told Dharmaraja to prepare it, but he's probably busy, so he hasn't seen the message. 9 times man, Xilianjinren and Bulang Blade Immortal. There was such a thing? I've already told Dharmaraja to prepare it, but he's probably busy, so he hasn't seen the message. Grenade-throwing senior immortal said, Brother Ling, you still have the dagger fragment. I'll have brother to come find you in the afternoon, and you can go together. Yeah. I know you're watching me. After reading it, Wang Ling immediately fell silent. Then he closed the chat window and pretended not to see it. At 1:00 in the afternoon, Immortal Toya appeared punctually at the entrance of the Wang family's small villa. When Mother Wang opened the door, she immediately saw this handsome, fair-skinned, gray-haired, ancient-looking man. Today, Immortal Toya hadn't brought his big medicinal gourd with him, and was carrying a long sword on his back, which made him look even more ethereal. Mother Wang thought this person was too handsome. Although she thought little Lei was also very handsome, it was clear that grenade-throwing was more of an amusing idiot, so she had always felt that if grenade-throwing senior immortal went into the entertainment industry, he would probably just be a comedian. However, her first impression of this gray-haired young man was that he was someone who could hold up the scene. She had the temperament of a superstar. Seeing Mother Wang appear, Immortal Toya immediately stood still and bowed deeply to her. Hello, Senior, I'm here to see Lingjinren. He knew that the people who lived in the Wang family's small villa were all extraordinary people. He had heard grenade-throwing senior immortal say before that there was an old man who was even more mysterious and unfathomable, a great senior in the cultivation world. Hence, when he came to the Wang family's small villa, he had come with a pious heart as if he were on a pilgrimage. Ling Ling, your friend is here to see you. Mother Wang opened the door and shouted out of habit, but Wang Ling had in fact sensed it earlier on, and took the initiative to come downstairs. After that, he changed into a pair of white canvas shoes and left with Immortal Toya, shoulder to shoulder. As they left, Mother Wang cupped her face in her hands and looked at their backs with an intoxicated expression. Ah, no. This was a boy. Ling Ling was also a straight man. Mother Wang suddenly realized. For a split second just now, she suddenly felt that Ling Ling and this young man seemed to be a good match. Mother Wang decided to calm down first. She was already so old, but she actually still let her imagination run wild. That really wasn't right. Immortal Toya had come in a car this time. Looking at the luxurious black supercar, Wang Ling hesitated for a moment, but in the end got in. Wang Ling actually didn't like transportation very much. He could directly teleport or run to many places, but he also didn't like to expose too many things in front of people he wasn't familiar with. He and Immortal Toya had only met a few times. If he revealed too many things, that would be too unreserved. There actually weren't many people whom Wang Ling could fully acknowledge. Chapter 195. But having said that, Wang Ling didn't dislike Immortal Toya because he was a pretty good brother. Because he was a pretty good brother, Wang Ling had left his good looks as an option for bonus points, but he had left this option at the very end. This was a world where looks mattered, but Wang Ling didn't care about looks. Appearance wasn't important to Wang Ling. Because his face could be pinched without surgery, he could do whatever he wanted. Because he had been too handsome and popular with his classmates as a child, Wang Ling had modified his face many times at a very young age, adjusting it to average according to the public's aesthetic standards each year. Wang Ling's current appearance was probably above average, and that was enough. What was the use of being good-looking? At critical moments, he could only sing, "Look at this face, it's long and wide, just like this bowl, it's big and round." The reason why Wang Ling felt that Immortal Toya was a good person was because he felt that this person was pretty good at getting things done. They had just met face to face the last time, and Immortal Toya had already pretty much figured out Wang Ling's character. As Immortal Toya drove, his heart was as clear as a mirror. This Ling Jinren didn't like to talk, and even if he had a question, he was too lazy to move his lips. Telepathy was his most common method of communication. But sometimes, it had to be said that telepathy was actually pretty awkward. If there were no outsiders present, it would be fine. In a situation where there were outsiders around, if someone used telepathy to communicate with you, only to see you talking to yourself, Immortal Toya had always felt that this was a little silly, and if the two of them didn't speak and completely communicated telepathically, it would be even more awkward. Furthermore, this was a pretty impolite behavior, which stemmed from the 1,000-year-old Taoist etiquette that cultivators had practiced. If a senior spoke telepathically to you, as a junior, you absolutely couldn't keep your mouth shut and not answer. So, in view of this situation, Immortal Toya had figured out a way to be friendly with Ling Jinren and ease the awkwardness of carrying out a mission without losing decorum. That was to learn to take the initiative, think through the problem comprehensively, guess what this senior Ling wanted to ask, and then explain it one by one. Wang Ling personally quite liked this method. Now that Immortal Toya was by his side, not only did he not have to move his lips, he could even give up on thinking. "Senior Ling, we're going to the Shao family compound now," Immortal Toya said as he drove. Shao family compound? Wang Ling hadn't expected this to be a familiar place. He suddenly remembered that when Lotus Sun had asked him out, there had been a small bit of trouble. Now that he thought about it carefully, that day had probably been the beginning of all his grudges with Shadow Stream. The Lightning King in the group works in the Shao family compound. Immortal Toya continued, "Dharmaraja's godly thunder inheritance is a holy relic. He is the last descendant of the Thunder clan, and the heir to this holy relic." Wang Ling raised his eyebrows. If Immortal Toya hadn't mentioned it, he would have almost forgotten about this thing. This was a sacred treasure left behind by the various ancient clans during the Great Doqi era. It was called a sacred relic by the common people, and only the descendants of the ancient clans could inherit it. However, more than half of the descendants of the 12 ancient clans had disappeared, and the whereabouts of many sacred relics were unknown. Wang Ling's understanding of lightning Dharmaraja had been limited. He had never expected this Dharmaraja to actually be a descendant of the Thunder clan, and to have even inherited a holy relic. Wang Ling had always thought that this Dharmaraja was an educator. The outside world has actually misunderstood Dharmaraja all these years. Dharmaraja used the godly Thunder inheritance to cure a lot of teenagers who were addicted to virtual games. After all, cultivation is also about doing good deeds and accumulating merit, but that isn't Dharmaraja's main business. Immortal Toya explains solemnly, Dharmaraja's real job is in the Shao family compound, where he works. Wang Ling. Immortal Toya, the buildings in the Shao family compound are all antiques, and sometimes they're damaged even if modern scientific methods are used to repair them. But the godly Thunder inheritance can break down and reassemble the broken parts, and can even weld them together. So Dharmaraja is actually a repair engineer. Furthermore, he's specially employed by the Shao family compound. Wang Ling, this was the second time he came to the Shao family compound. This time, Lotus Sun wasn't around, and Wang Ling couldn't use the green passage. But he could use the internal staff passage. Dharmaraja called the security office at the entrance, and the security guard opened the gate to let the two of them in together. Speaking of which, there weren't many visitors in the Shao family compound today. Since many of the scenic spots were under maintenance, a lot of customers who had bought tickets for the 3-day tour chose to take a break today. Of course, the Shao family compound also gave everyone compensation, which was a 500 yuan voucher for the Shao family compound's barbecue shop. This barbecue shop was owned by the Shao clan, and the biggest difference between it and the other barbecue shops outside was that it used an unusual flame to roast meat, which gave it a different flavor. The security guard uncle very generously gave Immortal Toya and Wang Ling a voucher each. You can use it once you spend 1,000 yuan or more. You can use as many vouchers as you want for the next 3 days. Is this really okay? Immortal Toya accepted the voucher and was a little embarrassed. We're just here to look for someone, it doesn't matter, I still have a lot here. The security guard uncle shook his head and went back to his little pavilion to his desk. Immortal Toya took a look, and when he pulled open the drawer, he saw stacks of vouchers in denominations of 500 yuan. The most important thing was that there was no date on these vouchers. The higher-ups printed too many vouchers and left all the extra ones with me. These vouchers will last me for several months. After saying that, the security guard uncle rubbed his beer belly. I've been working here for so long, I'm finally getting some benefits. Look at how thin I've become. Wang Ling, after officially entering the Shao family compound, Dharmaraja took the initiative to send Immortal Toya a text message to say that he was still doing maintenance at Treasure Cliff. It would be at least an hour before he could come out. Looking at the time, Immortal Toya exhaled and looked at Wang Ling. Senior, how about we go to the barbecue shop to eat something first? 2 vouchers, it'd be a waste not to use them. Wang Ling didn't say anything, and just nodded in agreement. But when he arrived at the Shao clan's barbecue shop, he found that there was already a long line of big-name customers at the entrance. As long as you spent 1,000 yuan, you could use the 500 yuan voucher as collateral. In theory, you could eat for free. This kind of compensation was nothing for a nouveau riche family like the Shao clan. And this directly led to the unprecedented scene at the entrance. This scene reminded Wang Ling of a popular gourmet shop he had visited before, which was famous for selling green dumplings. Chapter 196. It was an unprecedentedly grand scene at the entrance of the barbecue shop. There were so many people that it felt like the air they breathed in was scorching hot. The waiters in the barbecue shop were so busy that even the people who were originally in charge of the queue at the entrance started to serve drinks to the customers in line. Wang Ling felt that this was a bit of a waste of time. Given the volume of customers, Dharmaraja's work would probably be over before they could even get in. But at that moment, a girl suddenly walked over from the front of the line and extended an invitation to Immortal Toya a little embarrassedly. This girl was from a girl group who had been specially invited to the Shao family compound to dance. However, several members of the girl group had urgent matters to attend to today, which directly led to a lack of seats. This was originally just a small matter, it was just that a few people were missing. But when this girl turned her head in the crowd, she suddenly noticed the two little cuties standing at the back of the crowd. Immortal Toya didn't say anything, and just stood there with his arms crossed and a smile. Then, for some inexplicable reason, he had been invited by a girl from the girl group to fill a table. There were now several hundred people in line. Even if they had to fill a table in order, Wang Ling didn't think it would be their turn. Now, Wang Ling kind of wanted to take back his, "what's the use of being good-looking," remark. Sure enough, in this era where looks were everything, everything was fleeting. Appearance was justice. Now, he didn't have to line up, but Wang Ling felt a little unnatural. He had to admit that he was actually a rather antisocial person, and it always felt a little weird to eat at the same table with people he didn't know, especially strangers whom he hadn't even chatted with online. Although Wang Ling had to admit that these girls were pretty cute, he didn't like them. Including Wang Ling and Immortal Toya, a total of 10 people were led into a private room by a waiter. A young girl in a short black skirt with eyes so big that it made people's hair stand on end introduced herself. "You can call me Bamboo, I'm the deputy leader." Originally, there had been 12 people in the group preparing the barbecue, but now 4 of them had left. Because of the performance, the cost of the barbecue would be directly reimbursed by the Shao family compound, so in theory, Wang Ling and Immortal Toya's vouchers wouldn't be of any use, and they could just freeload for food and drinks. When they entered the private room, Wang Ling took the initiative to sit down in a corner, his face expressionless. "Immortal Toya, everyone, I'm sorry, this senior isn't good with words." Bamboo shook her head. It's fine. We invited you here in the first place. Feel free to order whatever you want to eat. It's fine as long as everyone is casual." They passed the menus around in order, and when it was Wang Ling's turn, there was a spirit light in his hand, and a plastic bag appeared. "Immortal Toya, Senior, this is..." He had seen this plastic bag before. This was the Xylongbeo-flavored crispy noodle snack which the old man had prepared last time, and he still kept it. Wang Ling thought that he had finally found an opportunity to eat it today. If he roasted it, he could eat it hot. Without another word, he directly put the crispy noodle snacks on the barbecue board, and very quickly, the aroma of the crispy noodle snacks the old man had specially made wafted out. A few girls from the girl group sniffed the tear-inducing soup dumpling-flavored crispy noodle snacks, and their eyes gradually became moist. "Ladies, what's wrong?" Immortal Toya didn't know what to do when he saw the girls' red eyes. Bamboo woke up from her runny nose, and tears were already swirling in her big eyes. "I don't know either, this aroma was indescribable, it actually reminded them of their mother's cooking." Thus, before the barbecue in this private room had officially started, everyone except Wang Ling was wiping away their tears. The most frightening thing was that this aroma gradually permeated the entire barbecue restaurant, and everyone's faces were covered in tears. It was almost 1:00 in the afternoon when Dharmaraja finished what he was doing, which was longer than Immortal Toya had imagined. After saying goodbye to Bamboo, Immortal Toya and Wang Ling left the barbecue restaurant. Immortal Toya's eyes were red. In the barbecue restaurant just now, he had been studying how to use spirit energy to seal his tear ducts. As it turned out, this was a very difficult operation. It was like how some people could bend their fingers. Some people could bend their fingers to unimaginable angles, while some people couldn't bend their fingers even when they were about to break them. Dharmaraja sent Immortal Toya a text message, and the two of them went to the Shao family compound's public service center. Dharmaraja was the office director of the service department in the service center. After knocking on the door, Wang Ling saw a slightly plump man with slicked-back black hair sitting in the office, sweating profusely. He was wearing goggles around his neck to prevent the godly thunder inheritance from blinding him. "Brother too?" Dharmaraja stood up from his chair and looked at Immortal Toya in pleasant surprise. These two people had met before and had even had a few drinks together, so they could be considered drinking buddies. Lightning Dharmaraja turned his gaze to the silent Wang Ling and cupped his fists in a salute. "This must be Senior Ling, right? Senior Ling is really younger than I thought." Like most people, Lightning Dharmaraja felt incredulous at first glance when he saw Wang Ling. A person with such monstrous strength could actually be this young, and the vitality in his body hadn't dissipated. this was too well kept. Wang Ling didn't make any more small talk. He nodded in greeting and directly took out the broken ancient magic sword. Dharmaraja instantly frowned. "What's wrong?" Immortal Toya asked. Dharmaraja raised the magnifying glass on the table and shone it at the magic sword. I just feel that the damage to this magic sword is much more serious than it looks in the photos. The fracture is uneven, I'm afraid it will be a little difficult to weld it. Immortal Toya, can it be fixed? Of course I can fix it. Give me 2 days, I'll take it back and fix it. Saying this, Dharmaraja turned to Wang Ling, but I have a small request. Immortal Toya had a bad feeling. What do you want? Senior Ling is very busy. Lightning Dharmaraja, brother too, don't worry. I won't steal your boyfriend. Immortal Toya, Lightning Dharmaraja didn't beat around the bush and simply went straight to the point. I've heard of Senior Ling's prowess before, and it's a rare opportunity to meet you today, so I hope you can agree to my presumptuous request. You want to compare notes with Senior Ling? Immortal Toya was startled. This was a man who could crush an ancient magic sword with his bare hands. Let's forget about sparring. I know that if it's a competition of raw strength, then I'll lose. I definitely can't beat Senior Ling. Therefore, I hope that Senior can stand still and let me punch you. I want to test how powerful the godly thunder inheritance can be at its fullest. Dharmaraja nodded, looking very confident. Chapter 197. Dharmaraja's confidence wasn't without reason. Not only was a punch infused with the holy relic godly thunder inheritance extremely destructive, the most important thing was that once the godly thunder entered the body, it would immediately numb the nerves. If you didn't take any precautions and took the power of the godly thunder head-on, very few people would be able to stand up to it. Of course, Dharmaraja's overall strength wasn't strong, but because of the godly thunder inheritance, he couldn't be too careless. Back then, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had been so overconfident that he had been bedridden for 2 whole days after taking a punch. The last time I challenged Senior Immortal, I only used 60% of the godly thunder inheritance's power. I've long heard of Ling Jinren's strength, so I've long since thought about this challenge. In the office, Dharmaraja bowed to Wang Ling again with an extremely sincere look in his eyes. You want Senior Ling to be a target to test the power of the godly thunder? Hearing this, Immortal Toya already understood. This holy relic was confirmed to have been passed down to me 300 years ago, and it took me another 300 years to completely inherit the Thunder Clan's holy relic. Then, I found this job in the Shao family compound. Unfortunately, after all these years, I've never seen with my own eyes how powerful the godly thunder inheritance can be when it's at its full power. Speaking up to this point, Dharmaraja sighed with some regret. As the last descendant of the Thunder Clan, if I could see it with my own eyes in my lifetime, it would also feel like one of my long-cherished wishes had been fulfilled. It feels like one of my long-cherished wishes has been fulfilled. I have no more regrets in this life. Dharmaraja's words caused Wang Ling to sink into deep thought. This wasn't a simple problem for Wang Ling. Taking the initiative to be punched without being able to fight back would be a test of Wang Ling's ability to control the backlash. The grass on the grave of the Shadow Stream killer who had punched him the last time was probably already dozens of meters high, but compared with the last time, there were still some differences. At the very least, the Dao Talisman seal which Wang Ming had made for him was still there, which was a crucial help in controlling the backlash. Now, Wang Ling just had to be careful not to injure Dharmaraja during the fight. So in the end, Wang Ling agreed to Dharmaraja's request. In fact, Wang Ling was curious about the holy relics handed down from the Great Battle Chi era. After all, many of them had already lost their effectiveness. This was because the holy relics were powered by battle chi. For example, the Shao clan's heavenly flame was also a kind of holy relic. Due to the lack of battle chi, it could only be used as a firework ornament and a special fire for the Shao clan to roast meat. However, the Thunder clan's godly thunder inheritance had a certain uniqueness. It was a product of absorbing the power of heaven and earth. Especially during thunderstorms, the godly thunder inheritance would automatically replenish its power and increase its power. This was because the Thunder clan's godly thunder inheritance was one of the divine relics that had been successfully preserved. It had completely changed from relying on battle chi to relying on the world's spiritual energy as its source. Due to the change of time and environment, he had completed his own evolution. Since Senior Ling has no objections, then I'll just watch the show. Did Law Kings have a place to fight? You can't use your fists and feet in this office at all, right? Immortal Toya asked. Yes, yes. Dharmaraja nodded quickly. After that, Dharmaraja used the community's special line to find a tourist car and brought the two of them to an empty square. This square is also a scenic area. It's still under maintenance, so outsiders can't enter. Dharmaraja got out of the car and introduced the place to the two of them. This used to be the Shao clan's family arena during the Great Battle Chi era. Speaking up to this point, Dharmaraja pointed to a small black dot 500 meters in front of the square. Wang Ling looked in the direction Dharmaraja was pointing, and realized that the small black dot was actually a black stone stele. It was already cracked and covered in moss, and even the base was wrapped in thick vines. It looked quite ancient. That's a magic testing stele, which the Shao clan used to test their own descendants. It's also something that the Shao family compound is currently heavily protected. It's covered in a protective film and cover to prevent corrosion from the elements over the years, Lightning Dharmaraja explained. Is there no way to repair it with the godly thunder inheritance? Immortal Toya asked. Dharmaraja shook his head helplessly. There's no metal element in this magic testing stele at all. If it's completely made of jade, the power of the godly thunder inheritance won't work. So that was it, Immortal Toya and Wang Ling nodded inwardly. By the time Wang Ling came back to his senses, Immortal Toya had already retreated to one side, leaving the arena completely to Dharmaraja as he cheered Wang Ling on from a distance. Senior Ling, you can do it. Wang Ling and Dharmaraja stood face to face in the middle of the square. Dharmaraja politely gave Wang Ling a 90-degree bow, then raised his head and fixed his eyes on Wang Ling. Then, he put on his goggles. Senior Ling, be careful. His godly thunder inheritance was almost instantaneous. As soon as he said this, there was a crackling sound in his left hand as a lightning flower burst forth, the dazzling electric light truly blinding. Immortal Toya, who was watching from the sidelines, subconsciously shielded his eyes. He only felt that the whole square had turned into a blur as it was completely enveloped in a vast white light. Wang Ling stood opposite Dharmaraja, and when the power of the godly thunder inheritance was instantly released, Wang Ling thought of a move called the Solar Fist. But the light of the godly thunder inheritance was much more blinding than the Solar Fist. But this kind of light was ineffective against the heavenly eye, which had been cultivated to the extreme. Dharmaraja was left-handed, and the power of the godly thunder exploded 7 times on his left hand. From the very beginning, he had raised the power of the holy relic to 70%. Dharmaraja didn't dare directly use the full power. The last time, he had only used 60%, and grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had been bedridden for 2 days. I'm going up. When the power of the godly thunder reached the 7th level, Dharmaraja abruptly strode forward, raised his left fist, and punched Wang Ling in the chest. On the other hand, Wang Ling remained unmoved. This punch was very fierce, and Wang Ling's bangs were blown back. But even though he didn't seem to move, he was in fact doing his utmost to restrain his golden body and suppress the backlash. The lightning, which was mixed with the godly thunder inheritance, struck Wang Ling's chest with unerring accuracy. When the lightning dissipated, Dharmaraja stared at the youngster in front of him in astonishment. It could only be said that this Ling Jinren was stronger than he had imagined. 7 layers of the godly thunder inheritance actually didn't have the slightest effect. A normal person would have already lost all feeling in their legs and been electrocuted to the ground. But the first thing Wang Ling felt when the 7 layers of the godly thunder entered his body wasn't pain or numbness, it was actually a kind of ticklish feeling. Chapter 198. How strong was the 7th layer of the godly thunder inheritance? Wang Ling felt that it definitely wouldn't be a problem for this power to completely paralyze a soul formation cultivator. Of course, the prerequisite for this complete paralysis was that the soul formation cultivator was completely unprepared. In a normal situation, absolutely no one would take Dharmaraja's attack with the godly thunder inheritance on it. This was also the reason why Dharmaraja had yet to witness the full power of the godly thunder inheritance. After the electric shock, Wang Ling actually felt a sense of comfort. Because his body had been at the level of a sage for many years, massaging his acupoints on the outside actually didn't have much effect on him. Instead, the godly thunder inheritance flowed from the inside and stimulated his acupoints, giving him a feeling that was almost comfortable. On the side, Immortal Toya was stupefied. Although he had already expected this result, Ling Zhenren actually didn't move a muscle after taking a full blow from the godly thunder inheritance. This was a little too exaggerated. But this result excited Dharmaraja a little. Senior Ling is really amazing, you live up to your reputation. The power of lightning in his left hand exploded out even more fiercely than before, and in that instant, the sound of violent thunder and lightning resounded throughout the whole square. It could only be said that the godly thunder inheritance was worthy of its name. It actually had the power to change nature. The sky above the square had clearly been clear for miles before they had come, but in that moment, dark clouds hovered over the square and gathered continuously. The sky had already changed to a dusky gray, and at the same time, a dense fog rolled out from the center of the square, making it impossible to see the road ahead. Even if Immortal Toya opened his heavenly eye to watch on the side, he could only see two vague figures in the fog. When all is said and done, a holy relic is really amazing. Watching the battle, Immortal Toya secretly marveled in his heart. At that moment, a drop of rain fell on the tip of his nose, and gradually, more drops of rain began to fall from the sky above the square. There was a tremendous rumble, and this time, Immortal Toya saw 8 flashes of lightning in that hazy fog. The power of the 8th layer of the godly thunder inheritance was much greater than before. Dharmaraja's powerful punch was accompanied by bursts of lightning as it blasted holes in the square. The bricks were completely charred by the electricity, and some had cracks on them. Immortal Toya could already imagine the mess after the war. Dharmaraja would probably be responsible for repairing all the floor tiles here. He didn't know if there was any metal in these bricks. If Shakyamuni couldn't repair them properly, he would have to pay for them one by one. These bricks that had been passed down from the Great Dochi era could be worth as much as a chicken cup. Standing in the square now, Immortal Toya couldn't help shrinking back as he looked at the broken bricks. Dharmaraja's fist hit Wang Ling's chest again. This time, Wang Ling felt refreshed, as if his conception and governor meridians had been massaged once more. What do you think? Did you succeed? Looking straight ahead, Dharmaraja saw Wang Ling, who had taken the punch head-on, just nod slightly. Whether it was the force or the impact of this punch, it was a lot higher than the 7-fold godly thunder. If the 7-fold divine lightning could paralyze a soul formation cultivator when completely unprepared, then the power of the 8th-fold divine lightning was enough to severely injure a soul formation cultivator. Furthermore, among all the holy relics, the godly thunder inheritance had a more unique attribute to begin with. Once the power of this lightning caused damage to the body, it was almost irreversible, and there was no way to regenerate cells to restore it. In contrast, paralysis of the nerves was the lightest of conditions. Wang Ling twisted his neck. Dharmaraja's jaw dropped as he felt the greatest shock and amazement. What kind of monster was he dealing with? Dharmaraja, why don't you try it with all your might? Immortal Toya couldn't take it anymore. A person who had been hit head-on by the godly thunder inheritance twice in a row actually didn't react at all. This really was the first time this had happened. Dharmaraja looked at the rainbow-colored lightning wrapped around his hand. For the first time, he wondered if the holy relic he had inherited might be fake. Wang Ling stood firmly in the middle of the square and took the initiative to wave at Dharmaraja. Dharmaraja's heart instantly crumbled a little. He had never thought that there would come a day when he would truly be able to use the full power of the godly thunder inheritance. Taking a slight breath, Dharmaraja composed himself as the lightning wrapped around his hand rose sharply again. From ancient times until now, in the records of my clan, no one has ever been able to come out unscathed after being hit by the power of the tenfold divine lightning inheritance. There was a hint of awe in his eyes as he looked at Wang Ling previously. Dharmaraja had only heard about Wang Ling's strength through various channels. Whether this famous senior in the cultivation circle had the rumored strength was actually something he didn't know until he met him for real. But now, Dharmaraja was certain that those rumors about Ling Jinren being a weakling were completely debunked. This senior Ling was really ridiculously strong. With the sound of 10 explosions, the power of the godly thunder inheritance reached a whole new level. In an instant, the weather changed, and the light drizzle from before turned into a torrential downpour. Dharmaraja's left hand was like a lightning dragon, and the moment it charged forward, the tiles on the ground instantly broke and turned to dust, leaving a gully more than 10 meters long in its wake. Even from more than 10 meters away, the powerful pressure was already transmitted to Wang Ling's face, making him tremble. The power of the full power of the godly thunder inheritance finally made Wang Ling's eyes darken. He really did feel a destructive force invading him. If the one who had unleashed the power of the godly thunder inheritance was that old devil who controlled the stone ghost mask, Wang Ling felt that the world might be plunged into eternal damnation. This was Dharmaraja's most powerful blow. Wang Ling felt that since he was a child, he had never seen anyone punch with such power, and his chest felt a stabbing pain from the weight of it. Unfortunately, Dharmaraja's movements were too slow, and Wang Ling could see every move he made. When Dharmaraja was only half a body's length away from Wang Ling slowly raised his hand to accurately catch Dharmaraja's violent punch, and his 5 fingers closed around Dharmaraja's fist. Instantly, the lightning dragon in Dharmaraja's hand calmed down, and at the same time, a tremendous backlash swept over them. Wang Ling's body glowed with golden light, and before the backlash could be fully unleashed, it enveloped Dharmaraja and Immortal Toya. Then, powerful spiritual pressure spread out in all directions with Wang Ling as the center. A few seconds later, billions of raindrops were swept away by the waves of Wang Ling's backlash, and the clouds parted as tranquility returned. Sunlight shone through the gaps in the clouds again, and Immortal Toya opened his eyes to see Wang Ling's 5 fingers closing around Dharmaraja's fist. Chapter 199. The sky above the square was now cloudless for thousands of miles. Dharmaraja took off his goggles and casually threw them to the ground. His forehead was drenched in sweat as he braced his hands on his knees and gasped for breath. After these 3 punches, Dharmaraja thoroughly understood one thing: the gap between him and Ling Jinren's strength was too great, and this gap could no longer be described as a ditch. There was clearly a vast ocean between him and Ling Jinren. There was a good saying, "Your Jinren is your Jinren, your grandpa is your grandpa." Dharmaraja was thoroughly convinced. Senior Ling is really too strong. I lose. He couldn't help sighing. The gap between him and Ling Jinren really wasn't small at all. Dharmaraja's explosive strength had already been raised to the limit by the 10th layer godly thunder inheritance, and the destructive pressure made Immortal Toya blush with shame. On the side, Immortal Toya hadn't been able to clearly see Dharmaraja's movements at all. In the end, for some reason, Ling Jinren had been able to withstand this punch just like that. Furthermore, Ling Jinren had only raised his hand lightly to instantly neutralize this biting cold attack. Dharmaraja thoroughly admitted defeat. When he came back to his senses, he realized that Immortal Toya was enveloped in a faint and hazy golden light, like a divine garment. This is... Before you punched, Senior Ling covered us with the protective golden light of a sage body, Immortal Toya explained. He had been watching the fight on the side just now, and had seen it very clearly. Otherwise, given the impact of your punch just now, I'm afraid you wouldn't even have been able to break Senior Ling's golden body, and would have been turned into slag by the backlash. Hearing this, Dharmaraja was actually a little moved. This legendary Senior Ling wasn't just powerful, he was actually so considerate. He was simply a warm man. Dharmaraja couldn't help feeling a surge of emotions. If he was a girl, he might fall in love with this Senior Ling, right? You've already fought, so you should be satisfied now, right? Immortal Toya folded his arms as he looked at Dharmaraja, as if he was watching a good show. Dharmaraja nodded and said, "Rest assured, Senior Ling and Brother Tu, since I've promised, leave the repair of the magic sword to me. After I go back, I'll work overtime to repair it." Immortal Toya looked at the ruined square and sighed. "By the way, Dharmaraja, is it really okay for you to destroy this place like this? Anyway, it's not open yet. I'll be able to fix these things soon." Speaking up to this point, Dharmaraja's gaze focused on Immortal Toya again with a complicated look in his eyes. He sighed. "I really envy you, Brother Tu." Immortal Toya. Lightning Dharmaraja, I've always thought that you were the most good-looking person in our chat group, but after seeing Senior Ling today, I realized that he's also very good-looking. The most important thing is that Senior Ling's boyfriend power is off the charts. When he fought me, he even wanted to use his golden light shield to protect you. Immortal Toya, Dharmaraja patted Immortal Toya on the shoulder and sighed deeply. "I wish you happiness." Wang Ling, facts had proven that when two good-looking boys stood together, it would indeed cause some unnecessary misunderstandings. Wang Ling himself felt that his current looks could only be considered average. To put it bluntly, it was just passable, but this could still be considered handsome. Wang Ling now really didn't understand the current aesthetic standards. It was only later that Wang Ling realized a serious problem. In fact, the main reason for Dharmaraja's misunderstanding wasn't Wang Ling, but Immortal Toya. This was the legendary, passable, principle. If your looks were average, and you were with a good-looking person, then your looks would automatically go up a notch. This was similar to the principle of a mirror. Experts had once said that when a person saw their reflection in a mirror, they looked 30% better than normal. This was all an illusion created by the brain. That's right, it was an illusion. No matter what other people thought, Wang Ling was already convinced of this theory in his heart. For the time being, he didn't have to worry about repairing the magic swords. Even so, these days hadn't calmed down. The hawthorn tree on grenade-throwing side was about to break out of the ground, and whether or not the owner of the stone ghost mask would show up was a big problem. That old devil hiding somewhere was another big problem. The problem Wang Ling had to face next week was the joint military training. 2 of the 6 universities would form an alliance to conduct a survival-related military training exercise, which was absolutely unprecedented in history. If it was just a spring outing or an autumn outing, Wang Ling could find all sorts of reasons to decline it. However, activities like military training and learning about agriculture were policies that Secretary Dakang of the Alliance of 10,000 Schools had set down decades ago. Every student had to experience it, and these scores would be added to their college entrance examination scores, which were also the key criteria for whether or not they could graduate. In short, this was an option that Wang Ling couldn't avoid. When that time came, there would definitely be too many eyes. When the time came, all the teachers and students of the 3 major alliances and the 6 schools would be there. Wang Ling felt that it would be very difficult to get through this military survival training exercise in a low-key manner in such a situation. Elsewhere, the old devil, who had gone into hiding in his small world, was also plotting a series of troublemaking actions with the master of Shadow Stream, Jiang Luiyue. If you want to defeat that killer Taoist, you have to recover your realm first. This isn't too urgent for the time being. The flow of time in this small world is different. My venerable self brought you here in the hope that you can recover faster. Then, after I fulfill my promise to you, my venerable self will be able to carry out my grand plan. Thanks to Lord Devil Emperor, I indeed feel a lot more comfortable cultivating here than in the outside world. Jiang Luiyue nodded. After these 2 days, Jiang Luiyue and the old devil had reached a further consensus. Your recovery is one thing, but I also have to entrust you with another. Staying in your body isn't a long-term solution, so I'm going to create a body now. I've already found the raw materials. It's the skeleton of an ancient almighty, the old devil said as he narrowed his eyes. Lord Devil Emperor wants to use this as a foundation to regenerate a body? Can it be done? Jiang Luiyue asked. The principle is similar to using spirit lotus roots to create a body in the outside world, but it's more complicated and more advanced. I need the vitality of tens of thousands of young people, and I'll use this as a driving force in conjunction with a great magic array to restore part of that skeleton's body. Don't worry, Lord Devil Emperor. When you mentioned vitality to me last time, I already thought of it. Jiang Luiyue nodded. A school that I mentioned to Lord Devil Emperor before is about to join forces with the other 5 schools for military training. When the time comes, there will be tens of thousands of people. Aren't those foundation establishment students ready-made vitality? After saying this, Jiang Luiyue smiled coldly, feeling that she was really too quick-witted. She had once said that she would massacre number 60 high school, leaving no one alive. Chapter 200. Devil Emperor Guo Pai felt that the information Jiang Luiyue had provided was very valuable. There were a lot of limitations to relying on the activation of a restriction array to make an ancient almighty skeleton regrow its internal organs and flesh. In addition to the need for tens of thousands of vital qi to be used as the energy source to activate the restriction array, there was another crucial condition, which was that these vital qi had to be absorbed at the same time the moment the array was activated. Thus, this was an excellent opportunity. The old devil had been having a headache over this matter before. But now, it had finally been resolved. Jiang Luiyue pursed her lips. No matter what, Lord Devil Emperor, you still have to be careful. After all, that killer Taoist is already a sage body. A sage body? That's impossible. My venerable self's body was actually just a little short of becoming a sage body back then. As long as that body can be restored, with a little more tempering, it will also be able to cultivate a sage body. When that time comes, who in this world will be able to stop me? Above the boundary pillar, the old devil and the stone ghost mask sneered. I let that junior take advantage of me earlier. But it doesn't matter, everything is under my control. Speaking of which, do you have any information on the 3 auspicious treasures that I asked you to look out for before? The golden canopy rope isn't here yet. Jiang Luiyue shook her head. But I heard that the 7 stars sword has already fallen into the hands of that great death-courting senior. Back in that convenience store, the alchemist who came to collect the souls of those delivery workers was one of his subordinates. We need to pay more attention to this matter. The old devil nodded. In his heart, he was planning to collect the 3 auspicious treasures. Back when Immortal Zhenyuan had asked the world to search for these 3 treasures, no one had ever been able to successfully collect them. The truth was that the purple gold gourd had always been in his possession. As long as he could collect the remaining 2, the old devil would be able to see that Immortal Zhenyuan's face with his own eyes. What on earth did the legendary Immortal Zhenyuan look like? This was something that the old devil was more curious about. Speaking of which, it had been several days since Bandit Evil had received his Shifu Old Antique's order to look for his eldest senior brother. He didn't know if it was because his senior brother's personality had changed, but Bandit Evil always felt that his senior brother had become more mysterious than before. In the past, as long as he hung the floral underwear outside, his senior brother would come to his door in a few days. But now, Bandit Evil felt that flower underpants was no longer his senior brother's weakness. Because Killer Taoist's whereabouts were uncertain, it took Bandit Evil several days to find the nearest place where his senior brother stayed. There was an old district in Jinghua which had been built when Huaxiao Nation had just been founded, and it was filled with large tube-shaped apartment buildings. On this day, a tall young man in black long-sleeved jeans appeared in front of an old tube-shaped apartment. The young man wore a black cap that covered his white hair. There was a saying that the experts were among the people, and this saying was not false at all. Looking at the shabby tube-shaped apartment in front of him, the young man felt nostalgic. Back then, he and his senior brother had been selected from this apartment, and then followed Shifu to cultivate. They were orphans and had no relatives. Who knew that so many years had passed in the blink of an eye? Standing in front of the apartment, the young man felt a little emotional in his heart. After entering the tube-shaped apartment, the young man saw the daily life of the residents here. Most of the residents in the tube-shaped apartment were poor people, not cultivators. But according to Huaxiao Nation's surveys over the years, the happiness index of these people in the apartment buildings was the highest, even far higher than that of cultivators who lived in luxury villa areas. One had to know that many cultivators were people who squandered money like dirt and regarded money as dirt. Immortal Toya and Third Saint, for example, would buy houses and buildings at the drop of a hat, and spend tens of thousands of gold coins with the flick of a finger. However, the vast majority of cultivators would feel empty and anxious, especially when they reached a bottleneck in their realms, and this anxiety would become even more pronounced. After searching the apartment with his spiritual senses for a while, the young man finally sensed a familiar aura in the 100-herb garden behind the apartment. The young man smiled and walked closer. From afar, he could see that there was an old wooden square at the end of the small path in the 100-herb garden. The horizontal board above the square was already cracked, and from the indistinct green ink, he could see the words, "Old Man," written on it. This was a public library, and all the residents in the nearby apartment buildings could borrow books. A middle-aged man with balding hair and several scars on his scalp was sitting in front of the door. He was leaning back in a bamboo chair and reading a newspaper. When he arrived in front of the study, he saw that the man was picking at his feet. The young man pretended not to know as he lowered his head and slowly approached, instantly concealing his aura. Swoosh! A silver needle as fine as gossamer shot out of the young man's fingertips as he passed by the middle-aged man. After a few seconds of silence, the middle-aged man in the bamboo chair put down the newspaper with a silver needle in his mouth. "Junior brother. I haven't seen you for a long time. Has your strength regressed again?" The middle-aged man didn't speak and relied on ventriloquism to speak. The young man pointed at his feet, and the middle-aged man instantly understood. He looked at his feet and found that his pair of flip-flops had disappeared. When he looked back, they were in the young man's hands. Both of them immediately laughed. "Junior brother, your finger strength has regressed a lot, but your hands-on skills have improved a lot." Killer Taoist smiled and got up from the bamboo chair barefoot. He stared at the young man in front of him. "Why are you looking for me?" "Master entrusted us with something, and I've been looking for you for a few days. I didn't expect you to be reading here. My personal spy is an administrator here, and he's been helping me spy for information. That's why I've been watching over him for the past 2 days," Killer Taoist said. "Bandit Evil, what information?" "Killer Taoist, I found that someone has been pretending to be me." "Bandit Evil, Killer Taoist, I've been aware of this for a long time, but I've been looking for clues. That kid pretending to be me is quite skilled. I can't find any clues. The disappearance of the delivery man 2 days ago was said to be investigated by someone pretending to be me. I hope I don't catch this imposter." "Bandit Evil, speaking of which, senior brother, are you immune to floral underwear now? Previously, as long as the underwear was hung on the drying rack, you would appear." "Hee, master, do you really think you can threaten me with underwear forever? As a top assassin, I've long overcome this weakness." Killer Taoist smiled faintly and pulled down his pants. Hee. "See? Now, I choose not to wear it." Chapter 201. In some sense, Killer Taoist and Wang Ming were actually quite similar in that they both liked to challenge their limits. Wang Ming was keen on challenging our Ling Junren, while Killer Taoist was keen on challenging his own Shifu, Old Antique. The reason why the two of them were similar was because they had one thing in common: neither of them had ever won. Looking at his senior brother in front of him, Bandit Evil was so frightened that he couldn't even keep his flip-flops on as he covered his eyes, which were about to go blind. He was just an innocent little virgin. Why did he have to let his eyes experience such an eyesore? "Shifu, hurry and save me, there's a pervert here. And it's your eldest disciple." Killer Taoist put on his flip-flops again and proudly pulled up his pants, without the slightest hint of remorse for corrupting the sex culture. "Junior brother, do you know, I've been looking for a way to defeat Shifu all this time. After all these years of searching, I've finally found the reason why I've repeatedly lost to Shifu." Bandit Evil raised his head, ? Killer Taoist, it's because of these floral underpants that are blocking my way forward. Bandit Evil, Killer Taoist, as a top killer, how can I be defeated by this little hobby? So putting on a neutral position is the best way I can think of. Bandit evil, killer Taoist. By the way, why is Shifu looking for us? Bandit evil, it's the students at Shifu's current school. Now that the whereabouts of the master of Shadow Stream, Jiang Luyue, are unknown, Shifu is worried that this person will organize killers to come to the school for revenge. If those people really want to make a move, they'll definitely do it quietly. Shifu is very worried that the children will be plotted against. Hearing this, Killer Taoist nodded. So, Shifu wants us to give them a warning? Bandit evil nodded. That would be best. Shifu has already retired behind the scenes for 100 years, and doesn't want outsiders to disturb his peace. Killer Taoist lowered his head and his eyes darkened. I understand. He took off one of his flip-flops and pulled out a fuse from the crack in the heel of the slipper. Killer Taoist grabbed the end of the fuse and yanked it. Suddenly, there was a whoosh, and a cluster of red flames shot up into the sky, one cloud-piercing arrow and a magnificent army. Bandit evil was surprised. When did senior brother gather so many subordinates? True experts usually have hidden guards around them. Previously, I had a sudden impulse and recruited 2 of them. Killer Taoist rubbed his nose. Just as he finished speaking, Bandit evil suddenly saw 2 figures descend from the sky. They were 2 men dressed in black and their faces were masked. They looked very mysterious. Bandit evil, only 2? That's right. Killer Taoist nodded and then turned to the masked man who had suddenly landed and introduced, these 2 are codenamed 1,000 Army and 10,000 Horses. These are the 2 subordinates I've just recruited. Let's just treat them as apprentices. I'll send them to the circle later to warn everyone. Come, quickly greet your second martial uncle. The 2 men cupped their fists at Bandit evil. Hello, second martial uncle. Bandit evil was speechless for a very long time. He realized that there was simply something wrong with his senior brother's brain. The 6 schools' joint military training this time wasn't a small matter. Rather than saying it was a coincidence that several key city high schools and key candidate high schools would be training together, it would be better to say that it had been planned beforehand and had been deliberately arranged together. Everyone knew that number 59 high school and number 60 high school were key candidate high schools. Now that these 2 schools had joined forces to confront the other 4 key city high schools, it was a big gimmick. Number 60 High School's headmaster Chen and number 59 High School's headmaster Jean were from the same sect, and both of them were very concerned about face. Given their personalities, when fellow apprentices got together, their top priority was to do everything they could to stir up trouble. It was June 13th on Monday in the 8th week of the semester. As soon as Teacher Pan entered the classroom early in the morning, she started to talk about the precautions for the joint military training this time. Headmaster Chen and Headmaster Jean worked overnight to devise a strategy for the survival drill, for the military training this time, and asked all teachers in charge to popularize it in their classes. I believe that everyone should have some understanding of the rules. There are more than 10,000 students from the 6 schools this time. At the beginning of the drill, an array will be used to send you to random locations on the map. You may have companions or opponents next to you, but only those who survive in the end will emerge victorious. Teacher Pan pushed up her glasses and said, so when you land, keep your eyes wide open. See clearly whether it's an ally or an enemy, and don't accidentally injure an ally, or your overall score will be deducted. Everyone, Teacher Pan, what I'm telling you now is very important. Don't take it lightly. Do you know that during the college entrance examination, there was a senior who didn't listen carefully when I was talking about these precautions and filled in the wrong answer card? In the end, he had to repeat the course for a year. Everyone, Teacher Pan, also, when you land, magic treasures will randomly appear in the buildings on the map, so you'll need to search for them yourself. After you land, don't look for those messy, useless things. If you have a weapon, pick it up first, and then look for a storage bag. No matter how good your kung fu is, you're still afraid of a kitchen knife, and you won't be able to beat those with magic treasures in close combat. Saying this, Little Peanut raised his hand weakly. Then teacher, what if we happen to be unlucky and don't have any magic treasures? Teacher Pan, do you still have to ask? Do you know how to hide and seek? Little Peanut, there are less than 2,000 students from our school and number 59 high school who are going to the military training this time. If we're unlucky and there aren't any magic treasures to pick up nearby, then find a place to hide. Don't come up and throw your life away. Naturally, it's best if we can stall for time until our allies arrive to send us equipment. We have to do our best to survive, so that we'll have a greater fighting strength in the end. Teacher Pan said solemnly, in short, there's only one word, stay low. Everyone, there are only two ways to win in this type of survival game. Either you're as strong as an old devil and sweep everything away, or you lay low and grow wretchedly. Teacher Pan looked at the students in the class and propped both hands on the dais as she said solemnly, to sum it up in one sentence, stay low, we can win. Wang Ling, that night after returning from school, Wang Ling realized that the images flashing in his mind were becoming more and more obvious. Previously, his heavenly eye had foreseen a man lying in a pool of blood. Now, he was completely certain that this man was grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. And Wang Ling was very sure that grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had fallen in the back garden of that villa in Wenxian Garden. Wang Ling was suddenly a little worried about that guy's safety. Chapter 202. Nurtured in the spirit soil and watered with spirit water day and night, the hawthorn seed which grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had obtained from Boss 10 finally sprouted after 10 or so days of hard work. Hands on his hips, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal looked at the green hawthorn seedlings with a sense of pride. 10 or so minutes ago, these seedlings had only been the size of soybeans, but now they were already growing at a speed visible to the naked eye. It wouldn't be long before the hawthorn fruit was completely ripe. But despite his pride, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was still a little discouraged. Because the little girl who played in the mud that Boss Tan had mentioned had yet to show up. Senior Immortal, will the girl that Boss Tan mentioned really show up? Song Qingshu, who was dressed in a well-ironed suit, asked the young man in white as he stood behind him. Who knows? The young man pursed his lips and looked a little unhappy. In fact, most people did not have high hopes for this matter in the beginning. Wang Ling had always felt that this matter was pretty unreliable, but there was no shortage of fools in this world. Boss Tan, who had kept this seed for so many years, was one of them, and grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, who believed that the girl would really show up after he planted the hawthorn seedlings, was another. Some people said that the higher a cultivator's cultivation, the more shrewd they would become, to the point that in the end, everyone would become a devil in the eyes of the world. They lacked that so-called romance, but Wang Ling could see that this romance was in fact an important part of a cultivator's Tao heart. Thus, cultivation didn't necessarily have to be about bitterness and hatred, and not every cultivator was as romantic as grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. Sometimes, Wang Ling felt from the bottom of his heart that it was really good to have such a friend on his path of cultivation. That evening, the street lamps on the side of Wenxian Garden had just come on. A figure suddenly emerged from the space crack under the street lamps. This was a blind spot, and when the figure emerged, the scattered passers-by on the side of the road with their heads down unexpectedly didn't notice him. With the purple gold-gourd spatial fog in this GPS positioning system, my venerable self can come and go as I please in this world. In Jiang Liuyue's body, the old devil looked down at his phone and smiled slightly. Originally, when he relied on the purple gold-gourd spatial fog to move, he still needed to come out from the exit first and then rely on his great magic power to lock onto his position. That was a waste of time and spiritual power. But now, it was much more convenient than before. The old devil, is this the location? Yes, Lord Demon Venerable. The person who took the 7-star sword lives here. Jiang Liuyue's voice rang out from the stone ghost mask the old devil was wearing. The old devil, is that a villa estate? Do you know which villa? Jiang Liuyue, the spy I hired earlier reported that there's a hawthorn tree in front of the villa, so it should be very easy to identify. Then let's go in and look for it first. This time, my venerable self must get that 7-star sword. The old devil nodded and said in a deep voice. While the two of them had just started moving, in the backyard of grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's villa in Wenxian Garden, a man in a black cloak was already looking at the hawthorn tree from a distance through the fence. This was an expert with an unknown realm. His aura was completely hidden under the black cloak, making him look extremely mysterious. "It's here." The figure under the cloak spoke softly to himself, and then with a light shake of his feet, he flew over the fence with a whoosh and arrived under the hawthorn tree. Standing in front of the hawthorn tree, the man took a deep breath and carefully sniffed the scent of the hawthorn tree. There was no mistaking it. This hawthorn tree had been planted from that tree back then. That tree had been specially processed, and the hawthorn fruit it produced had a special aroma, which could only be detected by someone who had undergone special training. Standing under the hawthorn tree, the man sighed with emotion in his heart, because only 1 in 100 million people could detect this special scent. As one of the 8 children who had been selected back then, he had been one of them. He was the only one who had survived that high-intensity, hellish training, and had been trained to accurately pick out the one with the special scent from a pile of tens of millions of hawthorn fruits. 5 senses, mental cultivation techniques, body movements, martial arts. He hadn't taken any elective courses during that hellish training, and he had cultivated everything related to cultivators to perfection. And all of this was to help Master bring back the person who had planted this special hawthorn tree. Now that he had finally found this hawthorn tree, the cloaked man was so excited that he felt like he was about to collapse. In order to find the person who had planted this hawthorn tree, he had suffered so much. So much suffering. Finally, he had found it. As long as he brought back the person who had planted this fruit to Master, he would be free from now on. All these years, he had lived a really tiring life. Now, standing under the hawthorn tree, if he could, the cloaked man just wanted to shout out 5 words, "I want to retire." After a series of roars in his heart, the cloaked man calmed his thoughts and came back to his senses. The most urgent thing now was to find the person who had planted this hawthorn tree. Just as he raised his head, an unfamiliar aura suddenly appeared behind him, catching him off guard. The old devil had actually directly passed through the space crack and arrived in the backyard. He had moved so quickly that for a moment, the cloaked man actually didn't see clearly how the other party had appeared. The moment their eyes met, the old devil and the cloaked man came to a conclusion almost at the same time. This person was definitely the person who had planted the hawthorn tree. This person was definitely the junior who had taken the 7 stars sword. Furthermore, the moment he saw Jiang Luiyue appear, the cloaked man actually had the confidence that he had found the right person. He had long known that Master was lustful, but he hadn't expected him to actually like this. He felt that the 2 lumps of mass destruction on the chest of the woman in front of him were a little exaggerated. Hands behind his back, the cloaked man stared at the old devil in front of him and said, "My master wants to see you, please come with me." "And who are you?" This time, it was the old devil's turn to be astonished. Were all juniors this arrogant nowadays? Using Jiang Liuyue's body, the old devil started to carefully size up the cloaked man in front of him. What surprised him was that this person's aura was actually very well hidden. Given Jiang Liuyue's current state of recovery, he actually couldn't detect it. "I know, that junior must have known that I was coming to steal the sword, so he was already on guard." "Did that junior send you?" the old devil guessed as he stared at the cloaked man. "Junior." The cloaked man was startled. There weren't many people who dared call Master Junior. This woman was most likely not easy to deal with. But what the hell was that sword? The cloaked man frowned as he pondered. After some thought, the cloaked man actually made the first move, raising his hand to grab the old devil. Who cared what that sword was? He had to strike first, knock the person unconscious and bring him back first. In the villa, grenade-throwing senior Immortal and Song Qing-shu, who were in the middle of a small meeting, were alarmed by the noise outside. Both of them stretched out their spiritual senses, and in the end, were stupefied. Chapter 203. After the hawthorn tree had grown, that legendary girl hadn't shown up, so grenade-throwing senior Immortal and Song Qing-shu had returned to the villa to discuss the follow-up insurance claims for the 20-odd delivery rider ghosts. When they came back to their senses, they were horrified to find that 2 people had inexplicably appeared outside the door. Senior Immortal, what do we do now? At some point, Song Qing-shu had already taken off his suit and quickly changed into a pair of long johns. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. Let's wait and see. Judging from his intuition, he could tell that both of them were top-notch experts. Regardless of whether it was the woman with a rather voluptuous upper body or the cloaked man whose face couldn't be seen clearly, the two of them actually didn't make the slightest sound as they fought. When they trembled together, they even turned into two balls of light entangled with each other. They're both experts. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal opened the curtains, leaving a crack so that he could secretly observe what was going on outside the window. These two people actually hide their auras so well. If it wasn't for the slight movement when they fought just now, Senior Immortal and I might not have sensed them. Song Qing-shu couldn't help exclaiming in admiration. That cloaked man in particular was really terrifying. To be able to fight without the slightest bit of aura or even make a sound, someone who could do this had to be close to the creation of celestial beings in terms of silent combat and aura-concealing spells. To reach this peak level, one had to cultivate these two spells from a young age. Since ancient times, professional killers and intelligence agents had been the most common people to be proficient in these two spells. At that moment, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was deep in thought as he observed through the crack in the curtains. It could only be said that as the owner of the cultivation forum and a veteran of the cultivation world for many years, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was in the end Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. Just by relying on the habits of the two in battle, he was able to guess their specific identities. First of all, the tall cloaked man's hands never left his sleeves during the fight, which was a sign that he habitually used hidden weapons. The most crucial point was that the cloaked man's techniques were clearly more vicious, and every move he made was aimed at vital points. It could be said that this was the instinct of an experienced killer or intelligence agent. However, the woman's methods were not weak either. Even though her attacks were not as vicious as the man's, both her movements and her positioning were very strange. He could even keenly detect attacks from blind spots that he couldn't see and dodge them. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's first instinct was that this woman's combat experience was so rich that it wasn't something someone at her realm could display. Moreover, he felt that this woman was very familiar, as if he had seen her somewhere before. At that moment, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was very vexed. What to do? After thinking for a moment, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal took out his phone, recorded the scene, and sent it to Wang Ling. And the scene recorded in the video was completely two rays of light colliding with each other. If it was just a photo, he probably wouldn't even be able to capture a shadow. But with the video recording function, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal firmly believed that given that cultivation forum gangster's eyesight, Wang Ling would definitely be able to see it. At that moment, after more than 10 minutes of fighting, the two of them finally stopped their follow-up attacks at the same time and stared at each other deeply. As expected of someone Master has taken a liking to. Apart from me, there are very few people nowadays who can cultivate silent combat and aura-hiding spells to this level. The cloaked man folded his arms and stared fixedly at the old devil. The old devil rested his hands on his knees and gasped for breath. In the end, Jiang Liuyue's realm hadn't fully recovered, and he wasn't used to controlling this body. He had consumed too much spirit energy in the fight, and he also had to keep an eye on the center of gravity of those two lumps in front of his chest. The old devil had suffered greatly in this fierce exchange of blows. If it wasn't for his rich combat experience, he would have already died 800 times under the cloaked man's continuous attacks just now. Staring at the cloaked man in front of him, the old devil was actually a little frightened in his heart. He hadn't been out for long. How had he already run into two juniors with such abnormal strength? There was still a limit to how long he could fuse with his body. It would take at least another 8 hours for him to be able to possess another body again. The old devil felt that if he continued to tangle with them like this, the situation would only get worse for him. He stared at the cloaked man in front of him and started to negotiate. "Little brother, is there some misunderstanding between us?" The cloaked man cupped his chin. "Misunderstanding? Then why are you here?" The old devil: "I followed the hawthorn tree here to look for someone." The cloaked man: "What a coincidence, I was also ordered to look for someone under the hawthorn tree." The old devil: "Don't worry, our master said that if we can bring them back alive, we'll do our best to do so. Under the cloak, the young man bared his snow-white teeth. Spirit light flashed in his right hand as he summoned a blood-red spirit sword. Miss, if you come back with me obediently, I guarantee that you won't be hurt. Given your nascent soul strength, don't struggle. But if you continue to resist, I don't mind cutting you up on the spot and bringing you back. The old devil was stunned. Not only was this junior freakishly strong, he was also AF *** king psychopath. The old devil, little brother, there must be some misunderstanding here. I'm here to seize the sword. Seize the sword? The young man's expression suddenly darkened. My master gave me abyss avoidance when I was very young. How dare you lay your hands on it? The old devil felt that the situation already couldn't be explained in a few words. He was sure that the person this young man was looking for wasn't him, but reality had proven that he shouldn't have tried to reason with a psychopath. Because of the limitations of his physical body, the old devil had initially wanted to avoid this meaningless fight. But given the current situation, he had to first get rid of this mastercon retard. Very well, Junior. You've thoroughly infuriated my venerable self. The old devil gritted his teeth, and with a hum, black chi flowed out of Jiang Liuyue's 7 orifices. A pitch-black cloud was gathering above the old devil's head. This was a demonic fog that cultivators below the soul formation stage couldn't see. This demonic fog was in fact a creature which the old devil had brought out of the gate between worlds back then. After being subdued, he had forcibly kept it as a pet, and raised it little by little using human blood and the souls of the dead. Before the old devil had been sealed in the stone ghost mask back then, this demonic fog creature had already possessed the strength of a void refinement cultivator. Given the limitations of his physical body, this was currently the best and most effective method of attack the old devil could think of. As soon as this demonic fog appeared, a gust of wind instantly surged in the back garden. Observing from inside the villa, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's expression also changed drastically. Oh no. Senior Immortal, what's wrong? Song Qingshu was also startled by grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's reaction. The man's face was pale as he stared lifelessly in the direction of the back garden. I haven't saved old Senior Wan's broccoli yet. Chapter 204. Behind the old devil, the demonic mist-like creature condensed into a mighty human-shaped devil spirit which seemed to be wearing a helmet. The devil spirit folded its arms, and then its eyes burst with red light. Under the cloak, the man finally couldn't help frowning. This demonic chi was really too heavy. Although the gate between worlds had been closed for a whole 6 years, there were still a lot of demons scattered all over the world and hidden in the human world. However, the cloaked man had to admit that this was the first time he had seen such a heavy demonic chi. Judging from the previous fight, the young man had thought that this would be a simple task, but the woman in front of him had shown a reaction speed and powerful methods that didn't match her realm. Was this really just a nascent soul cultivator? The young man looked doubtfully at the powerful void refinement devil spirit behind the woman, and was lost in deep thought. He now had every reason to believe that this powerful devil spirit might have been seduced by the woman. Eat him for me. The old devil was furious, and he started to manipulate the giant devil spirit behind him. In a split second, the devil spirit roared and spread its arms. Black fog rolled out, and endless cold energy spread out. With the devil spirit at the center, the ground instantly froze into a thin layer of ice. The young man's gaze was solemn. This cold energy, which had condensed from hell, wasn't ordinary. A cultivator with a low realm would immediately lose the ability to move if they came into contact with it. He retreated several steps and stood guard under the hawthorn tree. Using abyss avoidance in his hand, he drew a circle of light with a radius of 10 feet around the hawthorn tree, within which he retreated. This circle of light gave off a golden light, and the cold energy of hell which spread out from the devil spirit was kept at bay. The manor head had specifically instructed him to protect this hawthorn tree. Bringing the person back and protecting the tree was the mission that the manor head had given him. Standing in the circle of light, the young man pointed his sword at the old devil. If this hawthorn tree is destroyed, it's my loss. As soon as he said this, he stretched out his left hand from under the cloak. In a flash of golden light, his left arm instantly became enormous. This person had actually refined his left arm into a magic weapon. The two people in the room finally knew where this young man had come from. They had seen this scene before. To refine a body part into a magic weapon, this person was definitely from Immortal Mansion. But why would someone from Immortal Mansion appear here? He had injured Azwa and killed Yu earlier. Had this person been sent by Immortal Mansion to avenge them? Song Qingshu broke out in a cold sweat and looked a little nervous. Senior Immortal, is there any news from Senior Ling? Not yet. Brother Ling should have just finished school at this hour. I'm afraid he hasn't seen the news yet. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's heart was practically bleeding. He could only watch helplessly as the flowers and plants he had planted in his back garden were slowly eroded by the cold air. The most important thing was old Senior Wang's broccoli. Everything was ruined. Another quarter of an hour passed. The two people in the garden were using all their skills, and it was hard to separate them. Even the devil spirit that the old devil had summoned felt tired. This young man in front of him wasn't king normal person at all. The Qilin arm in his left hand was really terrifyingly solid. As long as the devil spirit summoned a ghost soldier to bite him, the young man would use the Qilin arm to block it, and not a single trace of blood would be left behind. On the other side, the young man from Immortal Mansion also couldn't attack normally. When all was said and done, this was a void refinement devil spirit. Not only couldn't he get close, even the sword chi that he slashed out was instantly dissolved by the devil chi. Thus, the current situation was like a wrist twister that had been going on for half an hour. Both sides exerted their strength repeatedly, but to no avail. But in this situation, no one dared to relax lightly. The old devil was well aware that even if he summoned the purple gold gourd and borrowed its mist to escape, it still wouldn't work. In the time it took to summon that purple gold mist, the young man's sword chi would instantly close in on her. Given the current state of Jiang Liuyue's body, she wouldn't be able to withstand the sweep of this sword chi at all. The old devil felt very wronged. When had he ever been bullied by a junior in his heyday? He truly felt a little tired. If this stalemate continued, it would only be disadvantageous to him. Brother, how about we call a truce for 10 minutes? No, we have to decide who's the winner today. On Master's orders, I have to take away the person who appeared under the hawthorn tree. No matter what, I have to do it today. As long as I take you back, I can retire. The young man shook his head very stubbornly. The old devil wanted to cry but had no tears. I already said, I'm not the person you're looking for. Whether you are or not, I'll take you back first. If you aren't, at worst I'll just come back and look for you again. As long as it's someone who appeared under the hawthorn tree, I'll take them away. The young man said. Are you king sick? The old devil couldn't help swearing. This is Master's order, I can only carry it out. The young man stared at the old devil intently. The sword chi I use with my left hand is 50 times more powerful than with my right hand. It's enough to crush your void refinement devil spirit. You already have no chance of winning. After saying that, the young man took a deep breath, then switched abyss avoidance to his left hand. The moment he gripped his left hand, it was as if that abyss avoidance had been connected to a boundless source of spirit energy. In a split second, it shone with golden light and instantly awakened. The old devil was horrified by the powerful spiritual pressure. This young man's strength was actually above the void refinement stage. He had completely miscalculated. But in his current state, there was no way he could summon a devil spirit more powerful than a void refinement cultivator. From the very beginning, this had been a battle of unequal strength. Inside the house, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal frowned slightly as he looked at the spirit sword in the Immortal Talisman man's hand. Somehow, he felt that it looked a little familiar. This spirit sword wasn't of a low quality, its spirit light was subdued, but its sword chi hadn't weakened in the slightest. At the very least, it was a holy weapon. But now wasn't the time to think about this. Holding the sword in his left hand, the cloaked young man had already slashed out with sword chi, and a tremendous sword power accompanied by a powerful wind pressure swept the whole area. That domineering golden sword chi turned into a crescent moon that was more than 10 meters long, which slashed at the devil spirit with almost unstoppable momentum. In that instant, both grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and Song Qing-shu were alarmed at the same time. The range of this sword chi was too wide, and almost everything in front of the young man was instantly turned to flying ash. Because the golden crescent moon was so wide, part of it had already entered grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's villa, and the walls were slowly torn apart. Not good. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was alarmed. At this rate, this sword chi would definitely cut him and Song Qing-shu in half. Senior Immortal, run. Song Qing-shu pushed grenade-throwing Senior Immortal away. But even so, it was already too late. This sword chi was closing in so quickly that even the heavenly eye couldn't see it clearly. But at that moment, a figure had appeared in the back garden at some point. Who is it? The young man from Immortal Talisman raised his eyes and saw a youngster in big white bunny pajamas appear in front of him at some point. In the face of this turbulent golden crescent moon, the youngster just stretched out his hand lazily and raised a finger. Chapter 205. Everyone felt suffocated at this scene. The golden crescent had actually been blocked. Furthermore, he had only used one index finger, and that violent sword chi had been stuck in place, unable to advance another half an inch. To be honest, Wang Ling felt that he had arrived just in time. If he had been a few seconds later, grenade throwing and Song Qing-shu would have been cut down along with the house by this crescent sword chi. At this moment, everyone fell silent. Wang Ling blocked this golden crescent and at the same time sensed the energy contained in this sword chi. This young man was very strong, even stronger than the old devil's void refinement devil spirit, and was different from the cultivators Wang Ling had met before. Let's break down the sword chi first. Although he had blocked this sword chi, Wang Ling felt that it was like an unstable nuclear warhead, which made him uneasy. He raised his thumb and rubbed it with his index finger, and the golden crescent instantly broke down into golden powder which dissipated into the air. This scene couldn't help but remind people of the lyrics of a song, "You gently twist the tip of your finger, and crush me." Everything was so simple and natural. The old devil stared at Wang Ling. Although he could only see the back of this person, who was wearing big white bunny pajamas that were in stark contrast to his strength, the old devil would recognize him even if he were reduced to ashes. This was definitely the junior who had broken his ancient magic sword at the entrance of the convenience store. Who are you? The young man from Immortal Talisman stared at Wang Ling, a few drops of cold sweat running down his forehead. His gaze was a little incredulous. The sword chi, which was 50 times more powerful, had actually been blocked by a single finger and then easily broken down. Wang Ling didn't answer, and only turned his head slightly to look behind him out of the corner of his eye. Both the old devil and the devil spirit couldn't help shivering. That look, if they stayed here any longer, they would definitely die. Sorry, my venerable self will be leaving first. The old devil broke out in a cold sweat. As soon as he said this, the purple gold mist from earlier rose up and then directly disappeared without a trace. For the old devil, this was definitely a painful decision. Ever since he was recognized as the demon lord by the world, he rarely put down his pride and did things that were completely shameful. It could be said that the old devil's escape had been completely within Wang Ling's expectations. Before the ancient magic sword was officially repaired, there was no way the purple gold gourd's protective fog would be able to track the old devil's small world. But Wang Ling knew that this old devil's days wouldn't be too far off. That gaze from before was a warning. Just like that, the old devil left. This devil Emperor Gua Pai, who was feared by the world, also had his own weakness, and that weakness was Wang Ling. When it came to his life and face, the old devil decisively put aside his dignity and integrity. He waved his sleeves and did not take away a single cloud. Unfortunately, this young man from Immortal Mansion still didn't realize the seriousness of the problem. No matter who you are, if you dare to obstruct Immortal Mansion, your crime is unforgivable, the young man from Immortal Mansion said coldly as he looked at Wang Ling. Pa. It was as if the spirit sword in his hand had been given a soul, and in the blink of an eye, it sped behind Wang Ling at top speed. This was a sword technique that could take the head of an enemy general from 1,000 li away. When the young man used this sword technique, the corners of his mouth curled up slightly, and he looked very confident. This was the move he was most familiar with among all the sword techniques he knew, and it was all about subduing the enemy in one move and killing them in one blow. Wang Ling had just turned his head when the blood-colored spirit sword in the young man's hand had already flown out. This sword was so fast that even a soul formation cultivator might not be able to catch it. Its sword chi was completely golden, like a bolt of lightning. Looking at this scene, grenade-throwing senior immortal seemed to suddenly remember something, and his eyes widened. This person said earlier that this sword is called Abyss Avoidance. Song Qingshu, senior immortal, what did you remember? Grenade-throwing senior immortal, I remember a legendary ancient magic sword, also called Abyss Avoidance. Its speed is at the top of the historical cultivation list of swords, and it's nicknamed Golden Flash. Its brother sword, codenamed Silver Lightning, ranks second on the list of swords in terms of speed. Hearing this, Song Qingshu couldn't help trembling. A young man from Immortal Mansion who was holding a legendary ancient magic sword in his hand. How much power was behind this Immortal Mansion? It really made one's imagination run wild. However, although Song Qingshu felt a little scared, he didn't feel any fear at all. For some reason, Ling Zhenren gave him a great sense of security every time he appeared, especially when he appeared in those big white bunny pajamas, which made Song Qingshu feel a trace of warmth and familiarity. In the field, the young man from Immortal Mansion sneered the moment Abyss Avoidance shot out. At the same time, Grenade Throwing and Song Qingshu, who were hiding behind a wall in the villa, couldn't help sighing. Nowadays, why were there so many people who liked to court death? Wang Ling's eyes followed the trajectory of the sword as it sped toward him. At the same time, he thought in his heart, if it was grenade-throwing senior immortal standing here right now, there would probably be no suspense in this battle. Whoosh! While he was thinking, the sword had already come at him from a strange angle, and was about to stab him in the back. Wang Ling just turned to the side and dodged it. At the same time, he grabbed the hilt of the blood-colored spirit sword firmly in his hand. The young man from Immortal Mansion's eyes widened. He felt like his view of the world had been refreshed, and he was being struck by lightning. How was this possible? This was Golden Flash, the legendary ancient magic sword that ranked first in speed on the historical ranking list of cultivation swords. The young man from Immortal Mansion was stupefied. To actually be able to block Abyss Avoidance's killing blow, how ***king fast was this person's hand speed? How many years did it take to be single? The young man gritted his teeth and silently recited the sword art again to summon Abyss Avoidance back. However, no matter how he cast the spell, Abyss Avoidance didn't budge in the youngster's hand at all. He instantly understood that it wasn't that his spell had failed, but that this youngster had an unimaginably monstrous strength. What kind of divine being was this? Behind the half-destroyed villa wall, grenade-throwing senior immortal and Song Qingshu had already expected this scene, and both of them couldn't help sighing. Senior immortal, you said earlier that this golden flash is called Abyss Avoidance. Do you know the real name of the second fastest silver lightning, senior immortal? Song Qingshu was very curious and couldn't help asking. Grenade-throwing senior immortal, oh, you mean that silver lightning? Song Qingshu nodded. It's called Pool Avoidance, grenade-throwing senior immortal replied without hesitation. You're tuning in to the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.